This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar.
Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
And it says D. Breeze, N. Foles, P. Manning. I did not know. I knew there was a J Cap. I forget if it was Joe Cap or Jim Cap. So I said some guy. Then I clicked on the link and it loaded. And then I saw Sid Luckman, George Blanda, Y.A. Tittle, Joe Cap, and Adrian Burke.
You have some respect on Y.A. Tittle's name, all right? That's so true. Y.A. Tittle was ahead of his time.
I respect Y.A. Tittle.
Sid Luckman also way ahead of his time. Like, Sid Luckman was actually throwing the ball down the field.
See, this is weird because this comes from the guy who like refuses to acknowledge errors when you talk about who the best players of all time are.
No, this I'm dead set on that take.
So then how is Sid Luckman one of the best of all time?
I didn't say he was one of the best of all time.
You just said
no, I did not.
Can we get a rewind
No,
on that?
I did not.
I think you just said that.
He was ahead of his time. I did not say he was one of the best of all time. I said he was ahead. When hosts don't listen, I said ahead, not best. But I am very dead set on that. You cannot have a conversation about the greatest players in any respective sport of all time without, like, everybody says, well, it's a different era. Okay, but if I'm putting a basketball team together, am I going to take LeBron James or am I going to take the great Bill Russell? I'm taking LeBron James. Like, I just, it's not even
So
close.
Russell's a bad example there because he played a different style, but he's probably a guy that would have been good in any era.
He would have been like a rim running five.
You're talking about you're talking more about a guy like at really any other guys.
Okay, I'll give you a better example. Okay, Don Hudson.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me.
Careful now, you don't want Bill here.
You cannot tell me
Don Hudson.
that Don Hudson and Randy Moss are the same species.
Obviously,
like they're not even. They're not.
Obviously.
One is a cyborg and one is very human.
Because one guy played in an era where they understood that, you know, drinking a beer and smoking a pack of cigarettes at halftime probably wasn't the best idea.
Okay, but I take
think
offense to people that then go ahead and say that Don Hudson is somehow better than Randy Moss
I don't think anybody's saying that.
Terrell Owens or name another like Calvin Johnson. Like no. And I don't adjust for era. Like I clearly am taking Calvin Johnson over Don Hudson.
I think that is implied, but the guy, it's like the thing when you do strength of schedule, you can only play the team on your schedule, right? How good might Don Hudson have been if he had these diets and these weight training regimens and this and that?
He was like 180 pounds soaking wet.
They didn't like work out back then.
Oh my God!
Like
this is such
also,
a silliness.
there's some great receivers now. We're going to talk about Jalen Waddle. How much did Jalen Waddle weigh?
I don't know.
180 pounds soaking wet?
No.
How much did Devontae Smith weigh? You love Devontae Smith. How much did Devontae Smith
Slim
weigh?
Reaper.
It's insane. Obviously, we know that guys from the 60s are different athletes, are different raw athletes than modern players because they have from the time they are born, there's a completely different regimen to get them ready.
Have you ever seen?
I think you just acknowledge that and move on. There are a handful of guys I think transcend era. Moss is one.
Have you ever seen like old footage of like Babe Ruth swinging a baseball bat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would not work. That would not work.
Obviously. But clearly,
what do you mean, obviously?
Of course, everybody, because it's like a running joke now for so many reasons that Babe Ruth wouldn't be good in the modern big leagues. But he still found a way and managed to be so much better than everybody else at the same time who had the same resources he had. That doesn't count for anything?
I didn't say it doesn't count for anything. I just don't want to hear any of these guys ranked ahead of modern guys that are in the same category.
So who's a better baseball player, Babe Ruth or Bobby Dahlbeck?
Oh my God, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking.
No, but if we're going to do this,
that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about
you get a time machine, you put them on the same team.
We're not
who's
talking
a better
about
player?
The Bobby Dahlbecks of the world. We're talking about like Babe Ruth versus like.
So then where's the
Shohei
line?
Ohtani?
So then where's the line?
One might as well be an alien. Like Shohei Ohtani, if you told Babe Ruth that because both of them played both ways, right? Both of them pitched and hit. If you told Babe Ruth that Shohei Ohtani would come along like 80 years, 90 years later, he'd be like, that person is not real. That is a fictional character in the movie.
But then, all right, if we're just going to default that this guy who has more resources to be better at the sport, we've learned a lot about the sport over the last 80 years.
You can't possibly think that that's what it is.
But that's what you're saying.
No, it's of evolution is what I'm saying.
Was Ruth not Ohtani to his era?
Yeah, and then evolution happened, and now Shohei Ohtani happened.
Okay, but Ruth didn't have the benefit of the evolution, so who's to say?
What do you mean who's to say? He's not going to magically get evolution. Like, he's Babe Ruth, and this is Shohei Ohtani.
It's not his fault he played when he did, though.
I'm not blaming him for it. I'm just saying he's not better than the people that are playing now. That's all I'm saying.
But better, like, on what? Relative to what?
To them. If you said who's a better baseball player, Shohei Ohtani or Babe Ruth,
then
I'm taking Shohei.
Who was a better baseball player, Babe Ruth or Bobby Dahlbeck?
Hey, Patriots fans, if you're going to want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And after that conversation, I'm going to need one of these. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. I'm not allowing us to debate that any longer. We could have gone on for another 20 minutes.
You take his nonsense.
And it's just not worth it. You're just not. It's not worth arguing with you over that. Let's talk a little bit of Patriots football. And gotta calm down after you got me all riled up.
Yeah,
coming
I do
out of the
tend to
gate.
do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Here's where I'm at right now, or where I wanted to start. And of course, I wanted to start here before this morning. And I wanted to give Alex Van Pelt his flowers. I still want to give Alex Van Pelt his flowers. I understand there's a lot. If you missed it this morning at his press conference, he was talking about Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones reached out to Alex Van Pelt, said, I want to help on offense. Alex Van Pelt claimed that he did not know that Marcus Jones had previously played on offense for the Patriots. Objectively, not a great look, right? Not a great look that he didn't know that. But I'm still not going to say that supersedes the good things that Alex Van Pelt has been doing. And my whole take with this is there was a lot of questions, not for myself, because, Alex, you can vouch. I said Drake Maye was going to be, what you tell me last week? I said he was going to be an MVP candidate as a rookie or whatever. That's what
Pro Bowler. You say be a Pro Bowler as a rookie.
Yeah, Pro Bowler.
I don't understand why you're so upset I brought that up.
Pro Bowler as a rookie. Anyways, Alex Van Pelt, in my opinion, has done a really great job with this offense. We're at that point now of the season where I feel pretty comfortable saying that unless the wheels completely fall off in the last 6 games of the season for Drake Maye, I want Alex Van Pelt back next year as the offensive coordinator of the Patriots. The big things to me that are in Van Pelt's favor right now, he has Drake Maye playing on time, in rhythm, from the pocket, and seeing the field extremely well, prepared. His mechanics are improving. His footwork has improved. Basically, the footwork conversation that we spent 6 months having about this player was all a waste of time. Like, he's completely fixed it within the span of a couple of months of working with Alex Van Pelt. And I would be really, really wary if I were the Patriots of the year 1 to year 2 jump for Drake Maye and switching coordinators on him from year 1 to year 2. They talk a lot about how they don't want to be error repeaters with the quarterback development. That would be repeating one of the most egregious errors they made of the Mac Jones era, was going from Josh McDaniels to Matt Patricia.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you at all worried that it could go? I don't want to phrase this. I don't know that too well is the phrase, but like, when do we get to the tipping point of just do other teams start looking at Alex Van Pelt to poach him?
Not yet. I don't think we're there.
Could they end up in that sweet spot where the development's there and it's enough, but it's not to the point where he's going to get head coaching offers?
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet for him, but what I'm seeing from Van Pelt, first of all, is I hear what you're saying, because calling him a quarterback whisperer is probably a little bit strong. Like, it's 6 games, right? Like, let's see what it looks like over a larger sample. But for Drake Maye, he has done a fantastic job developing Drake. He just has. You know, like, from the very beginning, he stuck to his plan. He stuck to his process. He didn't rush it. He didn't drag his feet. He did it perfectly. He did. And they have him playing fantastic football. On top of that, I feel like there are other things that are happening with this offense where we are seeing marginal improvements both from execution and from scheme that have me excited about where this thing could head with some better players next year. You know, if you have a true number 1 receiver, if you have T. Higgins on this team next year, if you upgrade the offensive line next year, there are bones to this offense where you're starting to see it now that Drake is playing and you have a better quarterback play that I really have liked. And I think we're making progress there. But more importantly, the most important asset that the Patriots have right now is Drake Maye. He, speaking to a player in the locker room earlier today, and he said that the future is bright because of Drake. Like, we have hope, and we want to work harder now because of him. It would just be a really big mistake, and something that I believe bad organizations do is react to external criticism, first of all, and react to maybe the fact that they're not ranked very highly offensively in points and DVOA and all that stuff, and just the results of it, and not see the bigger picture of the progress that they have made from start to finish. And bad organizations ruin quarterbacks by moving on from coordinators too quickly. And I think moving on from Alex Van Pelt in the offseason would be doing that, and you don't want to be one of those teams.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and it actually wasn't in the context of Drake Maye. It was in – what quarterback were we talking about? It might have been Bryce Young. The biggest problem in the NFL right now is teams are impatient.
Right.
Like, they just expect it to work. And Bill Belichick has actually talked about this. I think it was on McAfee, about you're seeing guys like Sam Darnold and you're Baker Mayfield, right? Guys like
Gino.
that get these second opportunities.
Yeah. And
maybe they're not hitting that total ceiling that was expected in the draft, but they're competent. They're legitimate starting quarterbacks because it turns out it takes more than a year to develop a quarterback. It's a multi-year process. And There's going to be ups and downs. It's not going to look great at first. It was Anthony Richardson. That's what I was talking about. It was Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
A big part of the reason the NFL is struggling so much right now to develop quarterbacks is impatience. And look, there's give and take there. You can't wait forever. Some guys are just bad, and you do need to recognize when to move on. I think the difference between is this guy not ready or is he a bust? So remember that thing from like 10 years ago, the dress, is it black and blue? Is it white and gold, right?
Yeah.
It's tough to tell. It can be really tough to tell. It's easy for me to sit here and we could go through these quarterbacks. We could play bust or not ready. And we could do it with Bryce Young. We could do it with Anthony Richardson. We could do it with all these guys. It's a lot easier to just spew that than actually figure it out. But, yeah, to your point, if the Patriots are patient, I think Drake Maye has shown you enough at this point that if they're patient, they'll be rewarded. But they have to be patient.
Yeah.
And when I say patient, because some people will hear that and roll their eyes and say, oh, great, so, another year of kind of doing nothing and waiting. I don't mean it in that sense. In that sense, they need to be aggressive. What I mean by patient is, like, this is not what it's going to look. You need to understand this is not what it's going to look like with Drake Maye long term. What he is as a rookie, his rookie year should not be his best year. That's a bad thing if his rookie year is his best year. What happened with Mac Jones, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, you want him to keep getting better and better and better, and some of that's natural growth, and some of that is you're going to put, hopefully, more pieces around him. You're going to get him a real left tackle. You're going to go out, you're going to get him that Tuesday morning wide receiver. And that's going to increase the level. So that's where the patience comes in, right? Don't overreact to what it was this year. Instead, you need to look at this year and say, all right, this is the first step. How do we continue to build on this instead of a new offensive coordinator? It's not a full reset button, but it's close.
There's just so many things that come with changing coordinators, and in theory, they could change coordinators and still be in the same family of offense, right? They could go get another West Coast guy to run a similar system, but even still, you're still changing languages to an extent. The comparison I always use with that is like, there's different dialects in different areas of countries, right?
Yeah.
Like you might speak different type of Italian in southern Italy than you do in northern Italy, right? It's still Italian and you can still understand each other, but there's little nuances that are a little bit different. Right now, the last thing that I want to do...
Sorry, I just had not just in verbiage. That could be, right, Van Pelt's the footwork guy.
Right.
And maybe you got to tweak the footwork again. Or maybe, there's certain players the team's invested in that we want to see less of or more of or whatever. Like, You're changing the path. You maybe aren't changing it as much as totally going to a new offensive coordinator, but they're on a good path. They should try to stay on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. When you talk about the footwork stuff, like Alex Van Pelt is a big believer in left foot forward, right? When Drake Maye is in shotgun, his left foot is going to be forward to the timing and the rhythm of the drop. It helps them with that, right? In terms of the steps of, 3-step drop, left foot forward, that times up with the routes that they're running off of the 3-step drop. So those types of things, those little nuances, he could get an offensive coordinator next year that says that I'm a right foot forward guy or I'm a square stance guy like Peyton Manning used to do, right? Or whatever. And now all of a sudden everything's thrown out the door, right?
Right.
So I'm just looking at this from a Drake prism. And then I also want to talk about some things that I've liked or I've been impressed with from a scheme perspective. But you have Drake Maye, you have a coach that has Drake Maye playing well, and don't let all the other stuff supersede the most important thing. And the most important thing is that Drake Maye keeps playing well. And we talk about this every week, I feel like, and I know I feel like I'm repeating myself, but eventually down the line, if you want to tell me that 3 years from now they need to move on from Van Pelt for a more a shinier new toy, someone that's a little bit more innovative and who has a little bit more creativity with his play design and all that kind of stuff, then I'll be on board if we get to that point. But right now, the most important thing is that Drake Maye is mechanically tied together. His eyes are in the right places. His feet are in time and online. His mechanics are cleaned up. His release looks a lot better and quicker. He's decisive. He's playing confident. Like, those are the things that you want to see. And I really worry about getting a new coordinator in here next year that he's going to revert back to some of the bad habits he developed at North Carolina, which is the last thing that the Patriots need or want. The other couple of things from a schematic perspective that I've been impressed with, Do you know the Patriots tight ends right now are 4th in the league in receiving yards from
Drake
the
Maye
tight
likes
end
throwing
position?
tight ends.
They're 70 catches for 728 yards. Both those numbers are 4th in the league. The only teams that are ahead of their tight ends are Baltimore with Mark Andrews, Vegas with Brock Bowers, who's having an incredible year, and Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. So you're talking about probably the 3 best tight ends in football right now that I just named. And then Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper are the next group. They're 4th in the league. So this offense has always done a nice job with tight ends, going back to Cleveland with Njoku and Hooper the first time when he was there in Cleveland. And those guys have always done a nice job producing, but they've really used the tight ends well. Henry's having his best year as a Patriot right now, on track for the most yards and catches in his Patriots career. So you look at that there's a couple other things, but just looking at the tight ends, they've done a really nice job with that position group. And I would also just say it really helps a young quarterback when you have 2 6'5" tight ends that like to work in the middle of the field. It's a nice safety blanket for Drake Maye to have those 2 guys.
Yeah, like you said, we knew this was probably going to be a tight end heavy year just based off what Van Pelt did in Cleveland, and that like 7 to 8 yard, get to the sticks and turn and just sit down. That's been there for them really since Drake Maye came in. And I'm kind of waiting to see when teams put more emphasis on taking that away, because that's going to open up more opportunities up the seam for guys like Pop Douglas, for guys like Kendrick Bourne. But they've been giving that to Drake Maye. He's been taking it. Hunter Henry just does I make that sound easy, right? Run to the sticks, find a spot, sit down. It's not as easy as it sounds. This was something, not a tight end, but that's Jacoby Myers was able to be as successful as he was so quickly because he had a great knack for this. Now, he was a quarterback, so he's pretty good at kind of knowing what the defense was going to do and being able to react. But safety blanket's a great way to put it. They've given Drake Maye kind of an easy answer when he needs an easy answer, and they've done it with consistency. And it's been a long time since the tight end position was something you were pumping up with the New England Patriots. So it's just another sign that, again, are they there? Are they done? No, not by any means, but they're making progress with the offense.
So I remember Dante Scarnecchia did an interview at some point and we're talking about Mac Jones, and he mentioned the quarterback's binky, right? Every quarterback needs one of those guys. That's just his safety blanket, his binky, whatever you want to call it. For Brady, Troy Brown, Dion, obviously, then Edelman, Welker, Edelman, I guess I should say in order, right? Like all those guys that won in the middle of the field were often the guys that Brady, 3rd and 5, like you're going 6 yards to Julian Edelman, right? Like those were the guys that he really relied on. It feels like we're treading in a direction where Hunter Henry is in that category for Drake Maye. Like he seems to be that person for Drake. So there's the tight end usage, which has been really good. You mentioned Pop Douglas. I think that they've figured out, for the most part, how to use Pop Douglas to the best of his abilities, whether it's throwing him design touches, scheme touches in the screen game, RPO screens, those types of things, slants over the middle of the field, caught another one last week, and just in general, just getting the football in his hands and letting him run with it, crossing routes. Another one of those last week on the 28-yarder, the great throw by Drake that everybody keeps pumping up, rightfully so. Pop Douglas, I've really enjoyed what they've done with him. I think that they've figured out how to use that player. He's not a big player. He's not a big target down the field, but he's a useful player, especially if you can get him and hit him on the move. And they've been able to find different ways to go ahead and do that. He had, the 18-yarder on the screen, or it might have been 14, 18, whatever. A nice chunk play on the screen. The 28-yarder on the crossing route, had another big play on a slant. Like, those are the types of things that they need to use a player like that with. Yeah. He might not be a high-volume guy. He's probably not going to be targeted 10 to 15 times a game like a Welker or an Edelman would out of the slot. But they've done a nice job of finding ways to let his speed and let his jitterbug ability really impact the game. So I've really liked what they've done with him as well.
Yeah.
Next one, offensive line. Feel like it's improving. Now, how much you give that to Drake, and how much you give that to the line and to Van Pelt and to Peters, like that's up to you. A lot of it is on Drake. Like he's doing a great job of getting the ball out, evading pressure, avoiding sacks, using his legs when he needs to. But their pressure rate has gone from 48% with Jacoby Brissett to 36% with Drake Maye. Much more functional, much more, functional, really is the best word for it. So some of that to me is continuity as well, but I give them credit. And this is something that I was trying to ask him today, but, good luck getting a question in on that press conference. But one of the things I've noticed is that they've basically scrapped all of the 7-steppers and long delayed play actions and, as much as I love leak and like all these like plays that just take forever in the backfield to get going. In theory, great scheme if you can block it. The Patriots couldn't block it. So the Patriots now, a lot of what Drake Maye is doing is 3 and 5 step drop, whether he's under center or out of the gun. And it's a lot of quick hitting stuff. It's get the ball out of his hands. Their RPO game has increased. Their gun play action game has increased. They are not asking him to turn his back to the defense a whole lot. They're not asking him to, elongate those fakes and end around and then hand off, and then now we're backed up field and we're trying to hit a delay route out of the back. No, we're not doing any of that stuff anymore that we were seeing earlier on in the season when Jacoby was getting killed because it was taking 3.5 seconds just to get his eyes back up the field. So I think they've done a nice job of just throwing some of those bad plays for them in the trash can, and I think that has helped a lot with the line as well.
I think you have to give some credit to continuity, though. And the other thing you mentioned, all right, well, this is what they've done since Drake Maye came in. How does that sync up with when they moved Mike Onwenu into right guard?
Yeah.
Right? It's about the same time. Wouldn't you know it, you put your best offensive lineman in his best position, and suddenly things look a lot better. I like this group. We'll see where Cole Strange factors in. I understand working him at center and left guard. I didn't love them saying that they were going to work him at right guard as well. I understand they want to cross-train guys. They want to get guys ready, but let's not go back to Mike Onwenu at right tackle, please. But I think that finally sticking with the group helped, and who knows what would have happened if they'd done it sooner, if they were able to do it sooner. I understand there'd be injuries. I honestly think you talk about the offensive coaching staff. If there's one guy I'm really high on at this point, it's Scott Peters.
Yeah.
Because
taken a very little and made a lot out of it.
Yeah. It hasn't been good this year, but how many times have we come out of games and been like, well, it wasn't great, but it's better than we thought. Yeah. Or just with individual players, you look at what they've gotten out of Vidarian Lowe. And I'm not saying Vidarian Lowe has been like a Pro Bowl or anything, but compared to expectations, what they've got out of Vidarian Lowe, what they've gotten out of Michael Jordan, what they've gotten out of DeMontre Jacobs, who showed up after final roster cuts and is now your starting right tackle and is functional. Yeah. He's not great, but he's functional. So I look at that and I say, all right, if this is what he's doing with the bare minimum, if this is what he's doing with the revolving door of guys who are, borderline NFL caliber players, what's going to happen when you actually get him, players with a ceiling? What's going to happen when you get him, and not just that? All right, what's going to happen when you give him the same 5 guys to work with week in and week out, and they can actually build to something? So, it took them longer than I think it should have taken them to get to this point. I think they should have had more continuity earlier. I think Drake Maye may have played earlier if they had more continuity earlier. Again, some of that's due to injuries, so I don't entirely blame them for that. Like, it's outside of their control. But I overall, I like what I've seen because they've made enough out of so little that I'm at the point where it's like, all right, like, let's give them something real to work with. And it goes back to the point you said with Alex Van Pelt and keeping that continuity. Like, if you move on from Alex Van Pelt, new coach is going to want his staff.
Yeah.
And that, now you're moving on from Scott Peters, and T.C. McCartney's another guy that's gotten a ton of credit, and he was on some of those lists about up-and-coming coaches. Like, you move on from Alex Van Pelt, you're probably moving on from those guys too.
Yeah. So I really do feel that they've done a much better job with their play calling in certain spots. Now, I think their timing of their plays could be a little bit better at times still, marrying it up to when they are expecting different coverage from the defense, right? But even still, I feel like some of the stuff that they've done has had more answers within each play call of, okay, if we have a man beater on here, but they drop into zone, it helps when they drop into the zone and your quarterback can run for 25 yards, right? Like that obviously helps. But it's something that I've noticed that has improved. And one of the other criticisms that I hear a lot about Alex Van Pelt is that they run the ball too much on first down. And the numbers do not back that up. They just don't support it. So since Drake Maye has been in the lineup and been the starter, the Patriots are 5th in the league in early down pass frequency. They're 5th in the league. They're passing the ball almost 60% of the time on first and second down since Drake Maye took over. And that's adjusted for situation, right? So we're not talking about like blowouts and 2 minute and stuff. We're talking about actual football, like first and 10 from the 25 at the very first play of the game, right? Like those types of situations. They're throwing the ball quite a bit. And I think some of that is a response to the fact that they haven't run the ball very well. And he's not just running into a brick wall, right? Like he's not just continually calling run after run after run, even though it's not working. So they are a very aggressive early down passing offense. I know it might not feel like that all the time, but right now they're right up there with, Kansas City, Buffalo, the teams that do this every year, that are like that every year because they put the ball in the quarterback's hands. So I've really thought that he's gotten better in that regard in terms of his play calling and the runs in the run game. They're getting downhill a lot more. Like you don't see quite as much outside zone. It's still in there. They still will run it, but they're getting downhill a little bit more. They haven't had a ton of success with it, but I like the city so at fullback element. Like I think that that's something that they needed to just do and figure out.
Do you think adding a fullback is in play this offseason?
I think for this group it is because, well, first of all, maybe not if they improve the offensive line. But the biggest thing for a fullback is that he can be a fixer, right? Like if you lose a block on the line of scrimmage, now you have like another layer before you get to the ball carrier. So it's almost like the players on the line of scrimmage have to go through 2 guys to get to the football instead of just 1. So that was the big reason why I thought that they needed to maybe look at a big, whether it's they call it muscle tight end, fullback, whatever. Getting a big fullback in there in this offense was because they couldn't execute the blocks on the line of scrimmage consistently, so it gives you almost it gives you like a safety net, right, in case you screw up on the line of scrimmage. So maybe like somebody that is a little bit different than an offensive lineman being eligible could be useful, but in Cleveland they used a center actually that as an eligible man. Forget the guy's name, but they typically used it out of a jumbo package and not like a traditional fullback.
Yeah.
So I could see them sticking with that. But the offensive line play, the tight ends, the wide receivers, I would say usage has gotten a little bit better. And then obviously they have Drake Maye playing great. So your point about let's give Scott Peters some better linemen. Maybe if they give him some better linemen and they give AVP some better wide receiver talent, now we really could be cooking here, especially if Drake Maye keeps playing
So
well.
In the end, we're back where we started in January, which was let's make the roster better.
Yeah,
be a
make
better
the
football
team better.
We're all the way back. Took us 11 months, 10 months, 11 months, and we're back. And it's not a bad place to be because you can add talent to the roster. Like that's not when I say it's not a hard thing to do. You got to identify the talent. You got to make sure it fits. But you have draft picks. You have cap space. You can add talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a compliment sandwich. That was my goal here.
Okay.
So I just gave a lot of praise to the offensive staff. I wish he hadn't have said that about Marcus Jones. Just you killed the momentum here a little bit, AVP. That was the compliment. Here comes the insult of the compliment sandwich. Everything that I just said about all the progress the offense is making and how I'm actually coming around to Alex Van Pelt, the opposite is true on the defensive side of the football. And on this show, I couldn't remember the exact show that we talked about this, Alex, but I know we talked about it. Maybe you can help me because my memory stinks for reasons that can stay off the air. The show that we did where we said that Gerard needed to be more involved on the defensive side of the ball.
It was probably like a month ago.
Maybe San Francisco-ish is where I was
a little
thinking.
later than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been on this for a while.
I think
We've
it was
been on
Drake
this for a
Maye.
while.
You've brought it up a couple times. I think we did it once post Drake Maye starting.
We're at the point now where, call it for what it is, I don't think that they've been super well coached, well coordinated on the defensive side of the football. And the stats are with me. They're 30th in the league in DVOA. They're 28th in the league in EPA per play. They're 18th in points per game. I know I got to get that one in there for you. But that doesn't even do it justice to me. Like, the 18th doesn't sound that bad. Like, that's like middle of the pack, right? Like, they're defensively, if I told you that all they gave up to the Rams was 28 points, like, on the surface it's not great, but it's not 50, right? It doesn't sound terrible. But when you look at the numbers and the efficiency in which the Rams scored in, they scored 28 points in 22 minutes of game time. They averaged 7.9 yards per play. Like, they could not stop the Rams. They did not stop the Rams. I would say the same thing is true if I told you in week 3 on that Thursday night game that they gave up 24 points to the Jets. On the surface, that doesn't sound that terrible. 24 points in the league now is like average, right, for a team every week. Did they play good defense that night in the Meadowlands? Absolutely not. They could not stop Aaron Rodgers at all. So defensively, this has been going on all year. That they haven't been coached very well. There's some specific things that I want to get into, but before we do, like, what is your what's your temperature at right now with DeMarcus Covington and the defensive setup?
We had talked about this. Now we got to go back again. We had talked about this, that they were just like, it was too much on defense. They're getting too cute. There was too much of the rotating coverages and disguising this and disguising that. That was like 2 or 3 weeks into the season. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
And then I felt like it had settled down and they had done more to get back to basics.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they were down a bunch of players. It feels like that's ramped back up, where I know you said, I asked you about this after the game. I know you said like Anthony Jennings only played 4 coverage snaps or whatever it was according to PFF. But I noticed a handful of times where like he wasn't setting the edges aggressively as he was.
He did not have a good game.
Right. But it didn't look like he was handling his assignment different, not just that he was playing.
I just thought that his
sense?
run force was nowhere near as good as it usually is. So whatever was behind that.
Yeah. But it just, he looked, so part of it too was, I guess what I noticed, like, he was lining up a little further out and he was lining up more upright, and they're putting Yannick Ngakoue hand in the dirt or Christian Barmore at defensive end. And I get it. You want to get those guys involved, but you want to get them involved. Like, I wouldn't change Anthony Jennings' role. Is there a way that you can get both of those things right in like that? Some of the coverage stuff, I know we disagree exactly on their usage of Christian Gonzalez, but I would say
I wanted to get into that. So let's unpack it.
It felt like they were doing a little too much at times. They're running these zones, and like Puka Nacua is running to wide open spaces.
Yeah.
And it's happening into the second half of the game. So too cute, not enough adjustments. It just feels like it did back at the beginning of the season.
So there are a couple of things I want to unpack here with the defense specifically. So I don't want to start with Gonzo because I'm going to probably get fired up, and let's end with Gonzo. Okay. The biggest thing that I want to start with on the defensive side of the ball is something that I have been harping on since I know this for a fact. I brought this up for the first time when they played San Francisco. So all teams are doing, especially these Shanahan tree teams, and we're going to face another one on Sunday in Miami, and I guarantee you Mike McDaniel is going to do the same exact thing. Teams are putting heavy personnel on the field. The Rams played a ton of 2 tight ends in this game. They played heavy personnel on the field. They know the Patriots are going to match it in base defense, and then they're just putting the Patriots linebackers at the point of attack and throwing at the Patriots linebackers. We know the Patriots linebackers are not good in space. We know they're not good in coverage. It's just not their strong suit, right? Jelani Tavai, Anthony Jennings dropping off the line of scrimmage. Christian Ellis is really a special teamer that's been asked to play a whole lot more because of injuries and poor roster construction. So they're trying to play a lot in base defense to physically match the opponent and not give up the yards on the ground. And first of all, I just think that's backwards thinking. Like, if I'm the Patriots, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to play nickel. Maybe I'll play big nickel with 3 safety, but I'm going to play nickel, run it because my offense, we're not going to score 35 on offense. All right, we're not there yet. So if the other team runs the ball and they take up time and they have to march 10, 12 plays to score touchdowns, you're shortening the game. So then you're keeping the game lower scoring, right? Like you're keeping the game in the 20s by doing that. So invite the run. Like don't give up. I'm not saying to give up 8 yards a carry, but like don't panic about the yards on the ground. This coaching staff seems more concerned about stopping the run than stopping the pass, and that's backwards. Like that's not how you should be coaching this thing.
Is some of it just because they've been so bad against the run? Because like you said, don't give up 8 yards a carry. They weren't giving up 8, but you look at that Jacksonville game, and as we get to this Rams game itself, and I don't think the Rams and Jags are similar teams, but it felt like a very similar game. You had that hot start, and then it just fell apart, and they started attacking you, and I wonder if some of that's just an overcorrection to what had happened.
So here's some stats for you about their base defense, because this is just alarming, right? So let's stick to the Rams game specifically, and then I'll give you the season stats here in a second. In the Rams game against Los Angeles, and I texted one of these numbers to you last night, they were in base defense, the Patriots, 25 times, 25 snaps in base defense out of 51 plays. The Rams averaged 10.3 yards per play when the Patriots were in base defense. When the Rams passed in base defense, it was 12 passes to 13 runs. 18.1 yards per pass play.
Yeah, it's too many.
18 in base defense. So what's happening in all these games, and the Patriots are just letting it happen. Like they're just continuing to do it over and over again. Is teams are getting them into their base with heavy personnel offensively, and they're throwing at their base defense, and they do not have the horses at the second level of the defense to play base coverage. They just don't. So 18.1 yards per play on the season. The Patriots now have the second highest base rate in the league on the season. They are giving up 6.3 yards per play in base defense. That's 30th in the NFL. So they are playing the second highest rate of base, and they're giving up the third most yards in base. So this has been going on all year. Like we've talked about this multiple times. In this game against the Rams, it happened again. Mike McDaniel in the Miami Dolphins, they only play 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, like 28% of the time. They're not a 3 wide receiver team. They're a Shanahan team. They're a 12 personnel team or a 21 personnel team. So Mike McDaniel is going to put 2 tight ends on the field, Jonnu Smith and the other dude that they play, like blanking on right now. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will be on the outside. Davon Achane is going to be in the backfield, and their speed is going to be against Jelani Tavai and Christian Ellis and Anthony Jennings coming across the field. And I just don't see how that could possibly be a good game plan. Like, that's just not going to work. So they've been doing this all year long with the base defense. That's item number 1. They got to get out of base.
So do you think some of that is just, and I'm not saying that, look, if it's not working, you got to adjust out of it. This goes back to what my thought on Covington in this game. Regardless of what you think of the game plan going in, it didn't work, and they needed to adjust out of it. Do you think some of it is lack of availability? They've been banged up at corner. They've been banged up at safety. Does it go to roster construction? And just, the best way to get, your most trusted players on the field might be in base, even if base doesn't make sense. Again, I'm not saying it's right.
My read on it is what you said earlier. They don't feel like they can stop the run in nickel. And the first time that they played the Dolphins, they played a lot of big 3 safety nickel. And the Dolphins, remember, in week 5, they ran all over the Patriots. I think it was like 190 yards or something like that. But again, my rebuttal to that is that, okay, you gave up 190 yards. How many points did you give up? You only gave up 15. And you were a heel away from winning the game, right? So, like, even though you are struggling to stop the run in nickel defense, it's keeping the game close. Like, and now that they have Drake Maye at quarterback, you have to think that they're going to win a game in the teens, maybe a little bit easier than they would have 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. So that's item number 1. Got to get out of base defense. Item number 2, and this to me is out of anything that they did on Sunday, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that they blitzed Matthew Stafford 18 times. Like, that to me is just really just not understanding the situation. Like, you're going up against a 16-year veteran in the league. And I think Stafford's elite. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. When you play really good quarterbacks that are veteran guys in this league, anybody would tell you you don't blitz those types of guys. You don't blitz Brady, right? You don't take guys out of coverage and blitz Brady. What was the plan for Brady? It was use 4 to get after him, drop 7 into coverage, and try to tighten up those windows. If you blitz Matthew Stafford 18 times, he's going to do exactly what he did in this game. It's like 220 yards and 3 touchdowns against the blitz. It wasn't just the 69-yard touchdown to Cooper Kupp. Like, he was shredding them in 5- and 6-man coverage all the time. So you talked about the motion, and then Puka Nacua was just in these like wide open voids. All they were doing is they were motioning Puka Nacua across the field, and they were opening voids, right? They were just stretching out the Patriots zone coverage. And since the Patriots are rushing 5 guys and dropping 6 into coverage, they just didn't have enough bodies in the secondary to cover all of the grass on the field. And with the motion in the formations, we're stretching them out so much that now all of a sudden there's these gaping holes in these zone coverages. So a lot of what happened on Sunday, especially a lot of the Nacua yards, I would say, he had one play where they were in drop 8. That was a big play on Marco Wilson. But a lot of the plays that Nacua had in this game that were big chunks of yardage were because they were dropping 6 guys into coverage and trying to cover them with 6 instead of 7. And it just burned them time and time again.
I mean, is that a product of, again, you're in base, Tavai's not a guy you're going to put in coverage, all right, but we need him out there to stop the run, so when they throw, let's just blitz him. Is it a product of that? And the one
Probably.
The one that stood out to me, and obviously, I mean, I'm not alone in saying that this was a big play, the Cooper Kupp touchdown on the 0 blitz.
Yeah.
Where they bring 7 and don't get home. And I think a lot of people maybe misunderstand what happened there. Like, I'm not going to say Jonathan Jones played that perfectly. He didn't. But the idea of a cover blitz, especially when you bring 7, think about it. 7, you're leaving 4 in coverage. So you're default leaving somebody open.
Yeah.
Like, not like, all right, we're going to be in zone. No, open. You have 4 to cover 5. What you're trying to do in that play is when you rush 7, you're trying to get in the quarterback's lap. And he may throw it. He may have somebody open, but he's going to have to throw it off his back foot or through contact or whatever. The Patriots bring 7. Not only does Stafford able to throw that clean, he has a pocket to step up into. And I go back to the play I've used to explain it, Super Bowl 53.
Yeah.
The 0 blitz, where Brandon Cooks is, in a sense, open if Jared Goff can get enough on that ball. But Kyle Van Noy's right in his face. He has to throw it fading away. It's a duck. It's 15 yards short. Stephon Gilmore's right there. So you look at where Jonathan Jones is. If they actually get to Stafford, he has to throw that off his back foot. Jonathan Jones, if it even gets that far, Jonathan Jones probably knocks it down. He's in a decent enough position to play that. To say that, Stafford had time. He had a pocket on a play in which he's not supposed to have a pocket.
Yeah.
Based on the defensive call. So it's not just how much they're blitzing; it's how much they're blitzing and not getting any impact from the blitz. It would be one like. You talk about don't blitz Stafford that much, sure. Well, if you're getting a ton of pressure and he's uncomfortable and you're knocking him around, you're moving him off his spot, that's one thing.
Right.
To blitz that heavy and it's like, all right, well, he beat us a couple times, but we were getting to him and we were trying to wear him down. They had 6 pressures, 3 quarterback hits. So it's not so much to me just how much they blitzed. It's how much they blitzed without success.
Yeah, how ineffective the blitzes
Right.
were. It's a really good point. And I remember in 2019, first half of 2019, remember how much cover 0 they were running that year?
That was like the whole thing.
It was the whole thing, the boogeyman. It was insane. And they had Stephon Gilmore to take number ones one-on-one, so they didn't necessarily need to give him help and all that. And I remember talking in the locker room with the McCourties, actually. And I don't remember if it was Devin or Jason, but one of them said to me, if we're going to run cover 0, we better get home.
Right.
It was like, that's the thing with cover 0. Like, if you're going to run it, like us in the, we always say to the guys up front when we're in the back, like, if we're going to run cover 0, then you guys better get pressure on the quarterback. Otherwise, it's going to be a big play.
Yeah.
And that play right there is a perfect example. I thought Jonathan Jones's leverage was poor. He set up outside of Cooper Kupp when he really should have set up inside. Because when you play cover 0, you think that in-break breakers, slants, things like that are going to be the beater to that.
Right, try and play the hot route.
Right. So you're trying to play the hot, and by taking away the middle of the field and try to force him to throw like a fade or something down the sideline to beat you instead.
He has to get more arm on.
Yeah, but that
and
being
that's not
said,
to say,
your point about them not getting home is the more important point.
Yeah, again, it's not. Jonathan Jones did not play well in
No.
this game. He had that one pass breakup late, so it's not excusable. But like, I saw a lot of people be like, "Why is Jonathan Jones on the field in that spot?" The issue on that play is not where Jonathan Jones was or his assignment.
Yeah.
Whether or not you should call cover zero there, I mean, we can debate the call itself, but if you're going to call cover zero, the quarterback should not be standing at the end of the play. Maybe he gets a throw off. But you need to be in his face right away. You need to be knocking him down. The fact that he didn't just throw it clean but had a pocket to step up into is very damning.
Okay, so last point on the defense, because I do understand the criticism of the usage of Christian Gonzalez. I might not fully – it's not that I disagree. This one I understand the logic. I don't understand the logic of blitzing Matthew Stafford 18 times. Like, that to me is illogical. Like, that doesn't – there's certain things I always look at it and say, okay, these guys are head coaches or coordinators in the NFL. I am not, okay? They know more about football than I do, full stop, right? So let's ask ourselves, what are they doing? And is there a football reason for them doing that? I can understand what they were trying to accomplish with Gonzalez. I can't understand what they were trying to accomplish with blitzing Stafford 18 times or playing as much base defense as they did. To me, there's no football explanation for that. The Gonzalez stuff, the biggest thing reason why I can understand what they were trying to accomplish is that the Rams use a lot of motion and they use a lot of ugly or nasty bunches, which means that they're in tight to the formation, right? So what they're trying to do with all of that is cause traffic, cause chaos, try to pick man coverage defenders off, like all that kind of stuff. When you play teams that do that, like the Rams, and do it at a high level, it's very, very difficult to shadow, and it's very, very difficult to play conventional man coverage. I'll give you an example beyond just Gonzalez. If you watch the film of this game back, when the Rams are in their bunches, the Patriots played box rules out of the bunch, right? There'd be 4 Patriots, and it's just first in, first out, second in, second out, right? That's how you sort of sort it out of the box. When the Patriots play other teams in box or in bunch coverage, a lot of the times they play lock and level, which instead is I'm locked into my man, but I'm at different levels so that we don't get picked off, right? So you have one guy on the line of scrimmage, another guy's like 2 or 3 yards behind him, another guy's like 2 to 3 yards behind him. But I have this guy, you have that guy, you have that guy. Against the Rams, they made a very concerted effort to zone off bunches because they knew that McVay was just going to switch release and cause all sorts of chaos to their man coverage. So in theory, I understood what they were going for by let's just play sides. Whoever comes out your side is who you cover. The problem is, as the course of the game went on, McVay caught on to what they were doing.
Right.
And then he was just motioning Nacua away from Christian Gonzalez. And that's when they started to get themselves into trouble.
Or just even setting up. I mean, there were a couple times, the big one in the red zone, where it's 2 tight ends to one side, 3 receivers the other, and the tight ends are on the Gonzalez side.
Yeah, the red zone stuff wasn't great. In between the 20s, I am okay with what they did. The red zone stuff was a little bit more.
So this is, and this goes back to my point. And again, it's about adjustments. I understand the thought process behind it, but like you said, McVay caught on.
Yeah.
And answered, right? Okay, so now what's your counter to his counter? And it didn't feel like the Patriots had one.
Right.
It felt like they just kind of stuck with it. So, especially a team like this, you want to come out, try something new. Fine, you're 3-7, right?
Right.
Sure, try something new. This is how we think we have to play them. I'm not going to jump on them too much for that. But when it's clearly not working, you need to change it. And that's what stood out to me. Like Drake Maye said, I don't remember if it was after the game or Monday morning, one of his post-game press conferences said, we have plans and we're always open to changing plans. Outside of a handful of snaps in the second half, there was no big picture adjustment. Let me put it that way. There was no big picture, this isn't working, we need to do something about it. Because you can have a guy, you can have, and again, the terminology, you probably know better than me. You can shadow a guy just in terms of where he's lining up and then play zone from there. Like, all right, well, Nakua's on this side, Gonzalez is going to go there, have adjustments, right? If he motions, this is what we're going to do to try to keep Gonzalez on at least the side of one of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Once it got to a certain point in that game where Nakua and Kupp, through motion or not, were both on the same side of the formation. Gonzalez was on the other side defensively. That should not have happened.
Yeah, they had a lot of times when Gonzalez ended up basically on Demarcus Robinson, who isn't a bad player, by the way. I should say he's not Cooper Kupp or Puka Nakua, but he's a decent receiver in this league. I mean, Seattle. It's hit a walk-off touchdown against them.
It's the old Billism. Go ahead and beat us with Demarcus Robinson, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. If Demarcus Robinson goes for
fair.
6 and 100. You played a good game. We'll put our hands up and give you credit. That guy get paid too. You're not beating us with Cooper Kupp. You're not beating us with Puka Nakua. That should have been the approach.
I totally hear that. And although I hear the point too that in theory, like the other thing that you hear a lot of is just double one of them out and put Gonzalez on the other guy. That type of stuff doesn't happen as much as you would think. Like true dedicated doubles. The only game plans that I remember over the last handful of years, where Bill actually doubled a guy consistently was when they played Minnesota on Thanksgiving. They did it to Justin Jefferson, half a dozen at least, maybe even more, with Jonathan Jones and a safety over the top. And then Tyreek Hill in the AFC Championship game in 2018 or 2019, season
2018 season, yep.
Those were the only two times in the last, since I've been covering the team, where I remember distinctly that game plan was we're doubling this guy out of this game. So it doesn't happen as frequently as you think. And just to go back to the McVay thing, the other issue with doubling or bracketing coverage, when you play teams that motion as much as the Rams do, that causes all sorts of chaos about the double teams, right? Like if they're going to motion Nakua at the snap on like a missile motion and he's going to come across the formation, do both guys go with him? Do you try to switch it off?
Right.
Does the safety on the left side of the field pass it to the right side of the field? Like how are you handling all of those different types of things? Look, it's a really good scheme that they played against, and this is why, right? Like these types of pretzels that they put you in defensively is why McVay is McVay.
Where does this come from, by the way? Because Bill used that defensive strategy of ace on two, double one for years and years and years, and coaches had to figure out a way to counter it, and that's kind of what they saw.
So last thing on the defense, then I know we want to move along here.
Well, it's a compliment sandwich, so you got to come back around too.
So here's sort of my compliment. All right, It's not a compliment, but it's more of like
this is an open-faced compliment sandwich.
Yes.
Speaking of sandwiches, we might need you to address something in a little bit. But
okay, that's fair. It's not a compliment sandwich per se.
You didn't address it on PU, did you?
But this is no.
Okay.
But this is my my patience right now trying to come in. DeMarcus Covington is a first-time NFL defensive coordinator and play caller. For my money, he might have just went up against the best offensive play caller in the NFL, and he got taken behind the woodshed. It's a learning experience. Like, it happens, right? Like, McVay is McVay for a reason. He's tremendous. Like, he does this to a lot of people. This is DeMarcus Covington's...
He's the good West Coast coach.
Sure. This is DeMarcus Covington's first time doing this.
I like O'Connell.
So I'm willing to give him some grace. But with that being said, these are trends that I've been talking about all year long. And I do really start to worry about the chops on the defensive side of the football. And I would like to think that Drake Maye could take more ownership and fix some of these things. Like, for example, at halftime, how don't you call off the dogs, right? Like, how do you not say to DeMarcus Covington at halftime, hey, DeMarcus, let's not blitz Matthew Stafford. He's shredding us. Every time we blitz, it's backfiring. The first or second play of the third quarter is a 69-yard touchdown on an all-out blitz, right? Like, how is that not a conversation? Hey, DeMarcus, Puka Nakua has 6 for 117 at halftime. Like, maybe we should put Christian Gonzalez on Puka Nakua, right? Like, these are the sort of adjustments that I don't see happening, and I put that on the head coach. It's not on the coordinator. It can be on the coordinator. Like, if Steve Spagnuolo was defensive coordinator for the Patriots, I would expect him to do it on his own.
But it's Drake Maye is a defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's totally fair to put that on him, and just projecting ahead, I think this game against Miami, super educational when it comes to where DeMarcus Covington's at, because you just got killed by motion.
Yeah.
You just got killed by motion and over blitzing, and now you are facing a team that motions, and now the philosophy behind the motion is different. It's a different sort of motion, but you're facing a team that motions as much more with where they rank motion rates. The Dolphins.
Yeah, so the Dolphins are 1 and LA is 2,
Okay,
but it's by a couple percentage
so
points.
you're facing a team that motions more than anybody else.
Yeah.
You're facing a quarterback in Tua. Do you know what his passer rating is against? So his passer rating outside the pocket this year is perfect.
I know, yeah. He's been really good at extending plays.
His pass rating against pressure is 126.2.
And he's just got such a quick release.
He's been just unreal against pressure. So a guy that you don't want to blitz, because blitzing him isn't really going to matter.
Yeah.
Right? So here you have the two things you got wrong the most last week: handling motion and over blitzing.
Yep.
And those two things are going to be at the forefront of game planning for Miami.
Yep.
Great opportunity for DeMarcus Covington to show, all right, last week I was a rookie.
Yeah.
I got my, he's not new to the NFL, but I'm saying welcome to the NFL coordinator moment. I learned, I fixed it.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for him to show that. Or do we come on here next week and say, wow, he learned nothing against the Rams today?
It might not be it. Yeah, it's a great point, and that's what I'm willing to allow for some grace. But
well, I think, I guess to that, like sometimes we've been doing this with Drake Maye about the turnovers, right?
Yeah.
Or just in general, the team growing the receivers. You're not going to get immediate answers to some of this stuff. It's going to take a little longer. This is a unique one where I'm not saying that this game is make or break for DeMarcus Covington, but you're going to get a pretty immediate answer on how well he adjusts after getting his lunch handed to him.
Yeah, it's a great point. And earlier today, Alex Van Pelt was asked about the Patriots' rookie receivers, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, and said, we're not really rookies anymore. I would say the same thing about the coaches. You've coached 11 games now. Like, at some point in time where you have to start to see some of these rookie mistakes on the coaching staff as well. Like, those things have to get out of their system too. And you got to get these guys ready to play. Like we said it in Chicago, we gave them their flowers after the Bears game because they were ready to play. They had a good plan. They were ready to play on both sides of the football. They won a football game. It went backwards this week on the defensive side, at least, where I feel like we came out of this game and said the coaches lost them a game. You win games with the players, you lose games with the coaches, right? And this week against the Rams, it felt like the coaches lost them the game on the defensive side of the ball. One other thing I'll give DeMarcus Covington, and then we got to wrap this. One of the bigger guys that was responsible for all of the breakdowns in the first half especially is no longer on the team, and that's Marco Wilson. Marco Wilson, and I wanted to segue into 3 up, 3 down anyways. I had Marco Wilson as my number 1 down,
but then
I
took him off.
Then they cut him from the team. It was bad. Like, that was as bad. Like, he looked like he was out to lunch.
And you kind of saw it coming in, like they were going to need a bigger corner, right? So, all right, Gonzalez, we didn't think Gonzalez was going to be covering Robinson, but Gonzalez take one of those guys. Jonathan Jones has looked like he's maybe lost a step. Marcus Jones, I actually thought had like a sneaky decent game for what it was, but 5'8" against these receivers is a tough ask.
Yeah.
And then, Marco Wilson had been great. I was surprised they didn't activate Alex Austin before the game.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they regretted not doing so after.
All right. 3 up, 3 down.
Yep.
Good segue-ish. Who's your number 1 up in this game?
All right. Victory lap time. Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't believe we've done this. Stop. I can't believe we've done this 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Where Kendrick Bourne shows he's a good football player.
Yeah.
The Patriots coaching staff, for whatever usually petty reason, disagrees. Kendrick Bourne gets benched. They roll through the rest of their receivers, none of whom show anything close to what Kendrick Bourne can do. Eventually, they're forced to go back to Kendrick Bourne, and wouldn't you know it, he's an electric playmaker, and the offense as a whole looks better with Kendrick Bourne on the field. I understand if you have a bad story about every roommate you've ever had, you're probably the bad roommate. I get that. I think Kendrick Bourne's the exception.
That's
I've seen people point out, like, all right, 3 coaching staffs, he got benched all 3 times. I think Kendrick Bourne's the exception to that rule. I actually think the problem is the coaching staffs, because is Kendrick Bourne perfect? No, he's not. He runs some bad routes. He takes some bad penalties. But one, how exactly have these last 3 coaching staffs, and I acknowledge they're different staffs, how have they done with evaluating wide receiver talent as a whole?
Yeah, that's fair.
And 2, they can't exactly be picky. when it comes to who they're putting on the field at receiver. For the bumps in the road that exist with Kendrick Bourne, every time he's out there, he looks like their best receiver. He's on a 1,000-yard pace in 21 before he got COVID. We saw, remember in 2022, he got benched in the opener. He played 2 plays. They were both like 20-plus yard completions, and then we didn't see him again for a month.
Yeah.
Last year, same thing. Now here we go again this year. He's their leading receiver in his return. And you know what? At this point, he's closer to 30. He's coming off a torn ACL, so maybe they just totally burned the upside that he had, and that would suck. But Kendrick Bourne, I still want him to go get DK Metcalf, but Kendrick Bourne is a damn good player. He's a good receiver. He should be on the field. He proved it on Sunday, and I truly believe he'll continue to prove it the rest of the year.
I got Dodos. That was a good rant. Yeah,
I just can't believe this is the 3rd time I've had to do this.
I know. So Kendrick Bourne is my number 2 up.
Okay.
So I'll just jump the shark here on that.
It's not what jump the shark means.
God dang it!
Don't jump the shark. Do you know what jump? Felger did this last week. Do you know what jump the shark means?
What's it mean?
Okay, no, because you used it there in like a really bad way to use it.
Oh no!
So
did I offend somebody? Sorry.
You didn't offend anybody. It's more just like a jinx.
Oh no! Sorry, KB.
So no, you didn't jinx KB. You jinxed us.
Oh no!
So Jump the Shark is Happy Days. It's a very popular TV show in the 70s, right? But, you know, as most TV shows do, even if you have a good run, you kind of run out of ideas. So at one point later in the run, they had an episode, a plot point, where the main character jumps a shark on skis. And it was so...
Was it the Fonz?
Yeah, it's the Fonz.
Yeah, I remember this.
So it's so, like, not in the character of the show, and it's just out of nowhere. So that's when everybody was like, Happy Days was over when he jumped the shark. So when you say something jumps the shark, it's mainly about TV shows. It means it's not good anymore. It's forcing it. It's over.
Oh, no.
So
no,
I
opposite
would hope,
of jump the shark.
We do not, you should not jump the shark. We do not want to jump the shark. That is a horrible thing to say about a show or a person or anybody. We do not want to be, you meant to say jump the gun.
Jump the gun. Thank you.
We should not be jumping the shark. If Catch-22 jumps the shark, you listeners need to let us know, because I do not want that to happen. And look, we've been at this going back to the CLNS days for close to 10 years now. So it's something we need to be aware of. Let's not jump the shark, please.
For 10 years now, you've probably been correcting me on my use of idioms because I'm terrible at it.
Okay,
I don't know
that
any
one.
of them.
That one is like, you understand why I had to stop that.
I didn't mean jump the gun.
Please jump the gun. Do not jump the shark.
Okay.
It's so weird because we did a whole hour with Felger last week on idioms because of jump the shark.
Anyways,
do you know where give somebody the cold shoulder comes from?
No.
Back in like old timey England.
Yeah.
They would, if you had a guest at your house, you wanted them to leave, a polite way to ask them to leave was to give them a cold cut of shoulder meat. And it was how you told them to leave. So give somebody the cold shoulder.
That's disgusting.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff.
So anyways, Kendrick Bourne was my number 2 up, so I'll just talk about him now since you brought him up first. I talked to KB today in the locker room, actually, and he just said that, first of all, he got benched. And when you get benched, that definitely snaps you into focus, right? Like that'll do it. So he responded really well to that. I just thought he was so much more precise and detailed this week with his routes, with his timing, like where he was supposed to be on the field, his conversions, like all of that stuff was just so much better than it was. The back shoulder throw in the 2-minute, I know it didn't end the way they wanted it to, but like that's a play with the chemistry and the timing with Drake that I just don't know would have been there a couple weeks ago. It wasn't. In Tennessee, they threw a really similar play and was almost intercepted. The couple of those spot routes that he ran out of those concepts in the bunch, like they just catch the ball on him, up the field, yards after catch. Like I believe he had 26 yards after the catch in this game. It felt like more, but that's what PFF had to say about it. So just much more detailed, much more crisp with his routes. I thought he was awesome in this game, and if they get that version of Kendrick Bourne moving forward, they're in good shape. Who's number 2?
Number 2 for me was sticking with the pass catchers, Hunter Henry. Kind of talked about him already. Yeah. Just in that safety blanket role. All of mine are pass catchers, by the way, all my ups. Pretty much everything I said before about Hunter Henry. He was good in this game.
Yeah, I almost had him too. I had him in Pop Douglas as honorable mentions on this list. I just thought Hunter Henry, he missed one key block in the 3rd and 1 play that they almost went for it on 4th down, and then Polk jumps offside. The play before that, he missed the block, and then Douglas obviously was in on the interception that ended the game. So I couldn't completely put them on the ups, but I thought both of them were, on the whole, were really good in this game. My number one up, though, to go back to that, was I'm gonna pull you. Ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull you right now. Drake Maye for the first 58 minutes of the game.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
So Drake Maye for the first 58 minutes of the game was was the best game that I have charted for a Patriots quarterback since Mac Jones' rookie season against Cleveland, which was just a hell of a game that Mac played that day. Drake Maye had 15 plus plays to 3 minus plays. That's a plus 12 net if you're not good at math. For me through the first 58 minutes. Just excellent. Like on time, in rhythm, in structure, playmaking from the pocket, eye manipulation, hot concepts, seeing blitzes, getting the football out on time, accurately to the first 2 levels of the field. Like that, I think, is the one thing that has really, really improved in his game from the Houston game to now. Houston game, he had some sprays. Remember, just throwing behind guys or throwing high over the middle to Pop Douglas. In this game, his accuracy at the first 2 levels of the defense was excellent. Really come a long way in that regard as a passer. And that, to me, tells me that he's really on his way. Once they get guys on the outside that can win down the field for him, the deep ball will come. I don't think that's Drake Maye forgetting how to throw the deep ball. We know he can throw it deep. What we didn't know is if he could operate on schedule in the short and intermediate passing game consistently enough to move an offense. He did that at an extremely high level on Sunday. You still see some of the off-script stuff, 16-yard scramble, the one to Henry that gets negated. Even though that got wiped out by penalty, I still count that as a plus play for Drake Maye. It still happened. It just didn't happen, and it didn't count. Some of the decisions he made in this game to just throw the ball away or check it down, I thought he was really patient throughout the entire game as well and didn't put the ball in harm's way often, other than the strip sack, which I kind of put on him. But at the same time, I thought that was really his only turnover-worthy play in this game. Just in general, I thought for the first 58 minutes he was electric. I thought he was excellent for that start. So Drake Maye for the first 58 minutes, and I think you can see where I'm going with this. But who's your last up?
I think it was pretty good. Similar, Pop Douglas minus the last play.
Yeah.
I thought Pop Douglas did a really good job in this game, creating after the catch, finding holes in coverage, things like that. I just thought you got a really complete effort from the Patriots pass catchers in this game.
Yeah, so I know I did a lot of waxing poetic about AVP, but he was my last up on the list. I think the biggest thing that I didn't mention, I mentioned the rest of this, but the biggest thing that I didn't mention off the top, or I kind of did, but the game plan in this game to use the short and intermediate passing game against that Rams pass rush, that's what we've been talking about when we say you can scheme around weaknesses. That is scheming around a mismatch and protecting your offense against a mismatch.
Drake Maye had his lowest ADOT in this game of any of his starts so far.
So he was 5.6 yards per attempt in the air yards per pass attempt, ADOT, right?
I thought it was like 7.6.
No, 5.6.
I thought PFF had it like 7.
No.
Where'd you find it?
No, 5.6. Next gen.
Oh, okay.
Anyways.
I finally get into using PFF, and now you're like, no, you're wrong.
No, that number is definitely not right. 5.6.
So then, wait. So if it's that much lower, PFF had Bo Nix's ADOT as 4. What was Bo Nix's actual ADOT last week?
Okay, maybe you just were looking in the wrong place. Is that possible?
I
love how this is what we get bogged down by.
No, because I've been talking about this all week, and now I want to make sure I got it right.
I think you might have been looking in the wrong place. I'm gonna keep going while you do this.
Oh no, I'm remembering wrong. They have 5.7. It was 5.7.
Yeah,
I had the 7 in my mind. Yeah.
So we've talked about this a bunch though. It's knowing where your weaknesses are and covering up and scheming around your weaknesses. Coming into this game with a lot of short and intermediate passing concepts and just understanding that Drake Maye just couldn't hold the ball in this game. I thought was really, really smart by the OC and really good game planning and play calling around your deficiencies. So I had Van Pelt as my third up, and then I had honorable mentions for Hunter Henry and for Pop Douglas as well. So let's move over to the other side of the ball.
Bo Nix's A dot last week was for.
Oh, and last honorable mention, I thought the only good player on defense in this entire game, not Gonzo's fault. His usage was why he wasn't necessarily enough.
He played fine.
Keon White was the only good player in this game for the Patriots defense in the front seven. He was disruptive. He had a good game. Let's go to the downs.
I mean, we already did an hour on this. DeMarcus Covington, number one. Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know how much more we have to say about that at this point. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yep. My number one down was Marco Wilson. He is no longer on the team.
I had 4, but I took him off my
list. I
list.
had 4 too.
I mean, when you get cut, it kind of...
Yeah, but I replaced him with Jonathan Jones. It wasn't that Jonathan Jones was awful in terms of where he was on every single play. They were tough, good plays by the offense, but you give up 3 touchdowns, you give up 3 tutties, right? Like, yeah, that's going to go on the downs. Like, it just wasn't very good. It wasn't good enough. Like, he just wasn't quite good enough in certain spots. And then I obviously explained earlier, I didn't think he played the cup touchdown. I didn't think he played a great technique on that play either in that cover 0. So I had Jonathan Jones number 1.
So coming to his number 1, number 2. I don't put him in order, I guess, but Kyle Duggar. I just thought rough game for him. First game back for that ankle injury. He missed a couple tackles early, a little slow to the spot at times. I just wonder how much that ankle injury is still bothering him. He didn't look like he was 100%.
Yeah, that's fair. My number 2 downs were I combined 2 guys. Okay. Daniel Aquale and Christian Ellis combined just got absolutely gashed in the run game. Like, it's just a game, and I always use this reference for corners usually, but like now the Patriots have Waldos in the front 7. Where it's just like wherever those 2 guys are, we're just going to run it right at those 2 guys. We're going to run away from Godshaw. We're going to run away from Farms. We're going to run away from Jennings. We're going to run away from Tavai. And we're going to put Ellis and we're going to put Aquale at the point of attack. And we're going to come right at them. And they just could not stop the run. Daniel Aquale is a really fine rotational pass rusher. Like if you're playing him situationally, you can get by with him on the field, and he can actually be disruptive on the pass rush. But they have to hope. It doesn't look like Dietrich Wise is coming back. He hasn't practiced the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jaquelin Roy, it's a bigger role for Christian Barmore on early downs now that he's getting back in the fold. Either way, they have to figure out a way to get Daniel Aquale off the field on rundowns.
Yeah.
Next.
Left side of the offensive line. So Vidarian Lowe had 2 very costly penalties. One of those penalties, the illegal formation one.
Yep.
He's lining up based on where Michael Jordan is, and Michael Jordan's not lined up correctly. So,
right.
On one hand, you look at Lowe and say, look down the line, realize he's not lined up, give him a tap, let him know. On the other hand, he shouldn't have to worry about where other guys are lined up. This is the NFL. You should just be able to trust that guy's lined up correctly. Not Jordan's worst game the last few weeks, but certainly not one of his best. And Vidarian Lowe, too, just got beat a few times. So, not a great day for either of those 2.
So I had Michael Jordan as my last one. I am with you on this. This has been trending, I would say, with Michael Jordan, and we're now at the point where we're talking about Cole Strange. City So has also not been good when they've given him opportunities to play guard so far. So maybe he's not the answer, but they pretty much can't run behind Michael Jordan. Like, they just, every time they run behind him, he's giving up stuffs left and right. I had him with 5 run stuffs allowed in this game. Just getting bodied. Like, upper body strength just not there, right? Like, just can't really sustain blocks. It's not so much that I think that he's bad in the initial setup of the block. I actually think that he gets on the guy pretty well. He just can't sustain it. Like, he just gets thrown off blocks too much. So I had him as a down. I didn't think Ben Brown was great in this game either, but I give him some leeway because he's a practice squad guy that's being forced to start.
Well, at this point, I think it's game on between Michael Jordan and Ben Brown, who's going to play well enough to save their job, because Cole Strange coming from one of those 2 spots.
Agreed. I believe that they're trying, and this coaching staff said it earlier with Van Pelt. I believe that they want Strange to play center. That's where his main focus has been in practice. Now, he said that that's mostly because he knows guard so well that he doesn't really need to care or focus as much on guard mentally, right? Like, he kind of knows what he's doing there. But I'm with you. As soon as Cole Strange is healthy, As soon as he's ready to go and is ramped up enough to play, I think he's going in. I don't know if it's going to be at guard or center, but he's going to play.
Well, and I think that's going to be dictated by, however long it is the next week or two, what Michael Jordan shows you and what Cole Strain shows you.
Fair enough. So you had 4 too, you said?
I had the fourth one was Marco Wilson, but I took him off because he got cut.
So my last one is Drake Maye for the last 2 plays of the game. Okay, so I had 58 minutes of awesome for Drake Maye. I had 2 minutes of not so good from Drake Maye. The sack before the interception might have been worse than the interception from his point of view.
I'd agree with that.
He took a really bad sack. He had Kayshon Boutte on the outside dig route. It's like double dig, right? Inside dig, outside dig, and you're just reading the safety in the middle of the field. If the safety jumps the inside, you throw the outside. If the safety stays deep, you throw the inside. Like, it's just reading that one player in the middle of the field. They buzzed it, so they closed it, right? It was 2, and then they closed the field. And he had Kayshon Boutte coming out of the break on the dig. If he hits that, it's probably like a 15, 20-yard gain, and they're right around the 50 at that point if he hits that throw. So that was a bad sack. And then the interception, I heard AVP today. He kind of put it more on Pop Douglas, it sounded like, for not knowing like when to sit in the void and look for the football. But I thought the throw was high anyways. Like, he's a 5'8" receiver. So in order for Pop Douglas, like, maybe if Pop Douglas gets his head around in time, he saves an interception by just getting a hand on the ball. Maybe. For him to catch it, like, if it was Hunter Henry, I would say, okay, he's 6'5", like, he probably would have caught it. 5'8" Pop Douglas, like, that's a floor I'm not sure Pop Douglas can climb to. So I put half and half. I split the baby.
Just along the lines with Drake Maye.
That was the right one, right? I split the baby.
Split the difference.
Anyways.
No, not split. What?
Yeah.
I don't think you used that correctly.
I think I did.
But along the lines with Drake Maye and Alex Van Pelt, I thought it was interesting today because I've talked a lot about limiting the interceptions, right? What does that look like? You find it interesting today Alex Van Pelt actually gave us a number? And I don't think it's a bad number. 10, if finished the year with less than 10 interceptions, so he's going to make, what is it going to be, 13 starts, right? 15, 16, 17. No, less than 11 starts.
12 starts.
11 full starts, including Jets game. So
math.
10 interceptions and 11 starts. He's at 6 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's a good number. If he can finish there, I'd feel really good. I just thought it was interesting. I had kind of said, 6 games left, 6 or fewer. I think I said it on the show last week. 6 games left, 6 or fewer interceptions for Drake Maye.
Yeah.
And I'll feel really good about where he's at turnover-wise. 10 interceptions. That's the number now. I thought it was interesting. Alex Van Pelt gave like a specific number for that.
Yeah, so the strip sack, I also put like half of each turnover on Drake. So the strip sack, he's trying to hit Kayshon Boutte as like the ISO receiver on the play on the 3x1. And like he's expecting Kayshon Boutte to run like a stop route. He probably had 9 steps and then just kind of break out of it, and he's just going to hit him right out of the break. And he just hesitates. I think Boutte wasn't really winning on the route and wasn't giving him a whole lot of confidence to make that throw. But that's one of those throws on third down that you probably just try to throw like a back shoulder where it's like Boutte or nobody, right? Like, and just kind of live with the incompletion on that play just to avoid the disaster of a turnover. So I put half of that on him. Even though Boutte wasn't really open, you have to just throw the ball somewhere, right? Like, you can't just, and it was a really, really fast sack, but you have to throw the ball to Boutte. Just throw it outside of his outside shoulder on the back shoulder. And if it goes out, it sails out of bounds, right? Like, and you punt the ball and you play field position and whatever. So that turnover, I put half on Drake, and then I mentioned the interception. But outside of that, there was really only one other play that I had like a really big gripe with. It was a 0 all-out blitz by the Rams in the red zone. They just sent the house on a third down in the red zone, and Drake Maye just kind of panicked, threw it out of the back of the end zone a little bit. And if he had just stayed with the play and stayed a little bit more poised, he had Pop Douglas on the slant for a walk-in touchdown, right? Like, Pop just separates out of the bunch, and he's gonna walk in for a touchdown. So that was just one of those plays where it was one of the few times where he didn't really see the blitz coming and was taken by surprise. Might have been the first 0 he's ever seen in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that might have been part of it.
And it goes to, again, the youth and growing. Like, next time he sees it, how does he react?
That's the one thing I would say, for him outside of the turnovers is red area offense, and oftentimes in the red zone, everything happens a lot faster, and the reads have to be a lot quicker because the space is so confined. So you have to speed up your process even more as a quarterback. So it's hard for rookie quarterbacks in the red zone. They haven't been as good in the red zone. I like that a lot of the offensive players said that they felt like that cost them this game. Like if they get touchdowns in a lot of those situations instead of field goals, they might win this game on Sunday against the Rams, and I agree with them. There was a couple of instances where I thought that Drake Maye should have pulled the trigger and just didn't, or whether it was throwaway, scramble / check down, really check down with him as a scrambler. And those types of situations, like he's just got to be a little bit faster with it in the red zone with his decision making. That will come. I also think they can help him down there by finding more ways to use his legs and incorporate his mobility, because that really eliminates a lot of that challenge. Like if you cut off half the field because you roll him out of the pocket, that's a much easier read than asking him to go through an entire progression in the red zone, right? So just roll him out, read option, whatever you have to do to get the ball in. I think that type of stuff is coming. Mayo said it earlier this week that they didn't want to overload him with information. Now that they feel like he's doing a better job with some of the traditional stuff, I do think some of the quarterback runs are coming.
We talked about this last week, that this was going to be a big test for AVP. Like, all right, you're not running the full offense right away. Fine. You want to ease the kid in, but you need to see it continue, because there's AVP, the quarterback developer, and AVP, the play caller. And for him to stay here, you need to see the offense come a little more complex and a little more intricate. And I want to do that right away, but all right, let's go. Let's start ramping it up.
All right, we'll get it to you guys. I know all of you have been waiting on hold for a really long time. We really appreciate it. And then we're going to talk some Dolphins here for the last half an hour as well. But before we do that, do you want to spend Black Friday weekend watching football instead of waiting in line? Heck yeah. This November, Bob's is unboxing unbeatable values for your home all month long. So you can skip the phony sales and stock up early on everything from sofas to bedroom sets to stocking stuffers, and plenty of wow-worthy gifts too. So stop in and see how much you can save when you dare to compare with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots, and Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots, is proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. All right, let's get to the phones. I know you guys have been waiting, so I appreciate it. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's going on, gentlemen?
How we doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. So I just want to say, I know you guys have been talking about AVP, and, just fans, these ignorant fair weather fans need to get it through their head that this is a first-year regime, across the board, minus the owner, quarterback, coach, coordinators included. All you really have to do is just look at how far Drake has progressed since training camp until now. And anyone that's listened to you guys, that's listened to Patriots.com, knows that it's night and day. So I just wanted to throw that out there first. Second, this will be the last time, I promise. I look into the future. But the more time goes on, if we're there, if he's there when we're picking, the needle is moving very far towards just picking Ted McMillan. Or if he's not there, Abdul Carter. And you know what? This may sound crazy. Let Vidarian Lowe play. Maybe get Josh Simmons, let him rehab and train him, to be the left tackle of the future. That's kind of where I am with that. And I have to ask this question. Are you guys doing a show next week?
We are doing a show next week. We're going to do it on Tuesday afternoon, I think. Probably around 4 on Tuesday. So we're going to just move it up on Tuesday, and then we will also have a show during the bye week as well, which is coming up too. So we'll have shows both of those weeks.
Cool. All right, I'll throw some Thanksgiving-themed questions out at you guys next week. But I really want to win this game, Evan and Alex. I want you guys to tell me what is the biggest variable for us to win this game, because I friggin' hate the Dolphins. I've always hated the Dolphins since the Shula Marino days. They are my Yankees of the NFL. And I know the Jets screw up every year, and that's great because I can't stand them either. But, I want this win. Tell us how we do it. I'll take it off air, guys.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks for the call. And yeah, thanks for prompting me to tell you guys that the next Tuesday at 4 is when our show is going to be. We'll both tweet and everything and make sure you guys are as aware as you can be. But that's a good shout. In terms of this game against Miami, I also appreciate a little segue into the Dolphins here a little bit. I'll just be short because I know we have people that have been on hold, and then we'll get into it a little bit more in a minute. But the biggest thing to me is going back to what we were talking about with the base defense versus nickel and all that kind of stuff. If I'm the Patriots, I am begging the Dolphins to run the ball in this game. Like, run it. Like, go ahead and run the ball. Try to possess it yourself. Try to shorten this game, and try to get this game in the 20s. Like, if the Patriots are in the 20s against the Dolphins, then I think they're going to have a puncher's chance, just like they did last week against the Rams. It's when it gets into the 30s because Tyreek Hill is hitting 75-yard bombs from Tua. Like, that's when I get worried about this game. They don't have the talent yet on offense to win a track meet against the Dolphins. So you have to make it an ugly game.
Force the Dolphins to be disciplined, force them to go on long drives and win the turnover battle, something they haven't been able to do. I'll say on his draft take too real quick.
Yep.
The whole Josh Simmons things, Patriots fans are starting to learn about Josh Simmons and really sink their teeth in. So Josh Simmons was left tackle at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Was having a really good year, trending towards being, a top 15 pick at left tackle, and tore his knee up. I don't remember exactly what the injury was or if that's even out there, but he's done for the season. So now Patriots fans look at that and say, there's your starting caliber left tackle that you can get later.
Yeah.
It's a half measure. And maybe Josh Simmons ends up being good, but it's a half measure. You don't know that he's going to be available next year. They've been doing half measures at left tackle for like 7 or 8 years now. They can't keep doing it. And the other thing about, letting Vidarian Lowe continue to play, again, he's been better than expected, but he hasn't been great. He's also been hurt a lot. And, he missed practice yesterday. We'll see what happens, what it looks like on the injury report today. He's not exactly a big body at tackle. And I think there's legitimate durability questions with him. So if your plan to go into the season is a fringe level starter who can't stay healthy and a guy who maybe has upside but won't be ready to go right away because he's coming off a torn ACL, you didn't fix the position. Yeah. Maybe you think you did, and if you're talking yourself into that being a fix in order to draft a guy like Ted McMillan, you didn't fix it. Like, you didn't. You're just trying to find a way to draft Ted McMillan. If that's what you want to do, to me, it's still getting aggressive, taking Ted McMillan towards the top. Maybe you trade down a pick or two if you can, if some of these quarterbacks show up, and then moving up and taking a guy like Ariante Ursary. We're going to hear a lot about Josh Simmons. And Evan, you might even like him. Tape might be good.
Yeah.
Taking a guy 5 months removed from a torn ACL, if he enters the draft at all, and I don't know if he's a junior or senior, so he may not have that option, but taking a guy coming off a torn ACL, if he enters the draft at all, that's not solving the left tackle problem. I'm not saying they won't do it, but to me, that is not addressing the left tackle position. It's kicking the can down the road again.
Yeah, so we have some good questions about the draft that we can get to here, too, in a second. But I want to take...
Simmons is a senior, so he can't go back to school, but point stands.
Yeah, I'm going to take Christian in L.A. here. What's up, Christian?
Hey, you guys. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, no worries. I love talking to you guys. I love the X and O's as opposed to what we do more on, what you guys do more on, Patriots Unfiltered. So this always gives us callers the chance to talk some actual football with you guys. So with that said, I kind of wanted to, in some way, echo what Patty said in terms of, hey, this is a new regime. Everyone's basically new, and you could tell that they're just experimenting. I mean, you have Alex Van Pelt, who gets this quarterback with superpowers, and he's sort of been increasingly nerfing Drake Maye's superpowers by having him throw shorter and shorter, sort of more controlled stuff. And that just reeks to me like Van Pelt is unsure of, the receivers that he's got or the schemes that he's got set up for Drake to throw down the field. So I would definitely like you guys to respond to that. But before that, in order for something to truly jump the shark, you guys left out one crucial component, and that is the appearance of Ted McGinley. If you remember, whenever Ted McGinley showed up, that's the show that jumped the shark. From Happy Days to Married with Children to any other show that he showed up on. So back to the Drake Maye stuff, what do you guys think about that? Van Pelt sort of being just a little bit skittish and sort of nerfing Drake Maye.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Christian. And this is something that I actually wrote about in After Further Review. I guess maybe I'm just like a glass half full kind of guy, but the way that I looked at the game plan and the fact that Drake Maye isn't throwing the ball down the field quite as much as maybe his skill set would suggest, I actually think it's really smart by the coaching staff because they don't have the horses offensively to play that kind of football. Like, they don't have ball winners on the outside. They don't have a great offensive line to scheme up the deep shots. So what are they doing? They're having Drake Maye play on schedule. Like, they're not going backwards. They're going forwards. He's hitting the short and intermediate stuff. What I've been really impressed about is how good he's doing at it, right? And now what my feeling is that he's really developed the short game, like to use a golf analogy, like he's really developed, his ability to putt. And now just wait a second until they have somebody on the outside that can win down the field. Now you're starting to see the driver too, right? Like, and now here's a complete guy. Like, now you can hit fairways and you can hit your putts, and all of a sudden you've got this complete player. That to me is what the goal is here. This is what we're good at right now, is the short and intermediate passing game because of who's around him. We're going to nurture this part of his game or develop this part of his game. And then once we get a T. Higgins, once we get a Tet McMillan, once we get a Travis Hunter, once we get a left tackle, then we can start pushing the ball down the field a little bit more because we already know he's good at that stuff. So I don't look at it as like they're trying to force Drake to play out of character or out of his nature. I actually think that they're trying to teach him how to play quarterback and how to win in this league. Like, some weeks it's going to take, you're going to have to win by death by 1,000 paper cuts. Other weeks you're going to want to throw the ball down the field. It's all just about matchups, and that was something that Brady was so good at. Mahomes has become excellent at it as well, where it's not every week is going to be 400 yards for Patty Mahomes, right? Like, some weeks he's going to have to play a different kind of game for them to win, and I think that's what they're trying to get through to Drake right now.
Yeah, we talked about this with the Bears game, right? Being able to just point guard it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're like nerfing the things he does best. I just think that's been the matchups. I'm sure we'll see him get back to some of the more explosive stuff.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Riley is in California. What's up, Riley? Riley.
Hello.
Going once.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, guys, sorry about that. I was on mute. So, a couple things here. First of all, I just want to say that I think it's pretty funny that every single show I watch, you're always apologizing to us listeners for keeping us on hold, Evan.
Learn a lesson.
Every week.
It's what we do.
Nope.
Hello?
Still there?
Oh, hello. I think he might have muted himself again.
That's been a pretty hot topic of discussion lately.
Sean, you still there?
Watching a YouTube video yesterday on like Patriots Chat Sports or something like that, and they mentioned how Gerard Mayo is very, very contradictory whenever he discusses Devon Baker. In the sense that he kind of goes back and forth on his words. Like a few weeks ago, he was saying that Devon Baker's an explosive player with the ball in his hands, and they've got to find him ways to get the ball. And so we've obviously seen him implement it on kick returns. And then last week, he had that great 46-yard return, and then obviously muffed the second punt and tried to hurdle the Rams defender and only got 16 yards. And then was obviously pulled out of the game and benched. And then Gerard Mayo, following the game, says, he wasn't doing it right. We just need him to do things more right. So I guess where I'm going with that is, you guys think it's actually a Devon Baker issue, like he's just not, doing X's and O's right, like not running the proper routes, not knowing his assignments, things like that? Or do you think that it's just a Gerard Mayo issue with Devon Baker's character? Since at the beginning when we drafted him, Mayo didn't really seem too fond of him and had some, comments early on about him. And so yeah, that's my question, guys.
Thanks for the call, Riley. Appreciate it. I think the biggest thing for this coaching staff right now, and we've asked them, all three guys, both coordinators and Gerard about this this season, is just weighing the pros and cons of the young guys playing, right?
Yeah.
Like when you play young guys, there's going to be mistakes, but you're also trying to develop those players. And as a rebuilding team, you want to develop guys like Javon Baker, like Jalen Polk, like Jaheim Bell, like Drake Maye. And you want to get them out there, and there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be bad routes. There's going to be mishandlings of footballs on kickoffs, all that kind of stuff. So it's a very fine line to walk between letting the kids play, but also those mistakes lose you football games, right? So it's definitely difficult. It's hard to sort of say which way to go with that. I hear both sides of it. I hear the sides that say you're 3-8 and you should just live with the kids and let it go. And my guess is that down, let's say, the last month of the season, last couple games of the season in January, I do think that you'll see the kids play a lot. Like, I think they will sort of let that happen. But right now, as crazy as it may be on the outside looking in, there's not really a path. But you have to coach like there's a path, right? And if they're actively hurting the team, then you have to pull those players off the field.
Yeah, and we've talked about what's best for Drake Maye versus what's best for some of the other rookies and doing all that. I just think with Baker, clearly he's not picking it up.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, he's not picking it up. They talked about maybe not liking what he was doing on the kickoff return. So you got to put the guy – players, it helps them to develop to play, but if the guy doesn't know what he's doing, it's not going to do much for his development. Yeah. And then you're just hurting everybody else. So
I don't love him on kickoffs. I don't really see him as, maybe I'm just have, which I know is bad, like logic to some extent. Maybe it's just the 40 time that's in my head. But I think he's an explosive mover, but I don't think that he's a explosive straight line speed kind of guy, if that makes sense. Like, I think he's twitchy, but I don't think that he's like a burner that's going to run by people. The guy that I don't understand why they don't try him on kickoffs is Isaiah Bolden. Like, I don't understand.
I'm still waiting for that. Well, my take at the beginning of the year was Keyshawn Booty being the kick returner, and then he became the number one receiver.
Right.
So.
Like, I get Marcus Jones is also a name that people have thrown around, but, Springer's explanation of, like, he's a smaller guy and they're trying to keep him healthy. Like, if you put him on kickoffs, punts, defense, now offense, like, it's spreading Marcus Jones really thin. I still think if you were in a situation where you could return a kickoff that maybe wins a game, that maybe they would put Marcus Jones back there to have that. The Dolphins do that with Tyreek Hill all the time, right? Like, if this is a game-winning situation, then we'll put him back there. So I could see that with Marcus Jones, but I do wonder, he's active on game day. He's playing on special teams. Like, why? I don't know why Isaiah Bolden doesn't get a chance. He was great at it in college. So that's the one guy I scratch my head on kickoffs with. Kendall is in North Carolina. What's up, Kendall? Call us back, Kendall, and we'll get you on the air. A couple emails. Want to go through the emails? Do rapid fire through the emails? Probably not going to work.
Well, let's see what the questions are. Sometimes you got to get a little bit of nuance. See what the questions are.
Okay, so here is an email from Floyd in Michigan. He says, good afternoon, Evan and Alex. A number of recent mock drafts have the Patriots selecting OT Will Campbell at pick number 6, which is frustrating, says Kendall, because he thinks and he has read that Will Campbell is a guard, and he is not drafting a guard with the 6th overall pick. So we are going to hear about this for the next 6 to 8 months. How long is it till the draft? 6 months?
No, like, what's April's 4? It's
6.
So 5,
What's April?
5,
it's
6.
4. It's crazy. It's 6 months. Let's call it 6. We're going to hear about this until February when he measures his arms at the combine, that Will Campbell is a guard. I am not ready to say that Will Campbell is the guard until I see the measurement of his arms. Right, like that's really where I'm at. He plays perfectly fine at tackle. He's got tackle feet. He's got a tackle movement ability. If his arms are too short, then we'll have that conversation when we have it. But for right now, I'm operating under the impression that he is still a tackle. But if he's at 32 inches, then he's going to be a guard.
Or is he, like Rashawn Slater? Is he the guy that resets the numbers? Is he just that good?
Yep.
Do you take that chance? And then there's also Kelvin Banks. Don't look, I'm the mock draft guy, right? I love
That's
doing all
you.
these mock drafts.
That's true.
There's a reason I don't do mock drafts till the season is over. The season being, college and NFL. Still ball left to play. So I wouldn't read too much into these mock drafts at this point, one way or the other. To me, if you see Will Campbell, that person basically tells you they think the Patriots are taking a tackle.
Yeah.
Also, it's 154 days, 4 hours, 11 minutes, 45 seconds until the draft.
Nice.
I found a website that counts it down.
Yeah,
This might be my new homepage.
What it's like what's the website? It's like
Draftcountdown.com.
Oh, really? So there's like a website that I use all the time that's like a date-to-date calculator.
No, this is specifically for the draft. Like, this website is draftcountdown.com.
The fact that you didn't know this already is kind of
I know.
astonishing. I'm
know.
surprised by that. All right, we have Kendall back. Kendall is in North Carolina. What's up, Kendall?
Hey, sorry about that. How you doing?
Good.
Hey.
I got two questions, one for you, Evan, and one for you, Alex. The first one, Evan, what are you seeing from this Dolphins defense, and what is the best way for the Patriots to attack on Sunday? And for Alex, I want to ask, if we address wide receiver in the offseason, so let's just say we go out and sign T. Higgins, and then in the first round, could you see us still taking a Ted McMillan, or did you see us probably getting another guy probably later on the draft, and who would be the odd man out the receiver room? Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kendall. Thanks for the call, as always. So starting with the Dolphins, I think the biggest thing to me with this Dolphins defense is they have given up quite a few yards in the same type of game plans that the Patriots used last week. Like those short and intermediate yards are there. They are a pretty exotic in terms of how they scheme up pressure. Like it's pretty similar. We're getting to the point now, and this is probably a longer conversation for a different time, but we're getting to the point now where like this like Mike McDonald, Vic Fangio fused together defense is like the Shanahan tree, right? Offense where it's like half the league is running the same defense.
Right.
So the defense that the Dolphins are running under Anthony Weaver, who was with Baltimore for the last 3 seasons, is really similar to the defense that they played against the Rams, where they're going on third down, they're exotics. Like they're going to bring pressure from different places, and it's going to be up to the quarterback to sort it out post-snap. So I look at this game plan again and say just continue to do what you do, because Gardner Minshew averaged 3.7 air yards per attempt to go back to ADOT and had the same 282 yards and 2 touchdowns as Drake Maye did, right? Really almost the exact same stat line for Gardner Minshew. So Brock Bowers had a huge game. Patriots have a couple capable tight ends. So I expect the Patriots to try to, do the same exact thing. And hopefully they, like they did last week, you break off some of those short and intermediate routes for longer plays on explosives.
Yeah.
Draft.
I would say if they add a veteran receiver, even if they added T. Higgins, right, if they want to go back-to-back with receivers, him and McMillan are pretty redundant.
Yeah.
At that point, we're probably talking more about Luther Burden or even Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah. Who's coming on, I feel like.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he's starting to play better.
Yeah.
He just set the Ohio State all-time receiving yards or receptions record, which when you think about...
Is that career?
Career, yeah. Which is... Now, a lot of those guys are only there for 3 years.
Yeah,
Buka's
he was
been there a while.
for like
still,
half a century. Yeah.
I would be really surprised if they did that. Even if they, went out and got a different receiver. And I don't Higgins and McMillan don't make sense together.
No.
Like, those two guys play the
Both
exact
X's.
same position, same role. That would be a bad pick in that specific. Not that McMillan is a bad pick, but in that specific circumstance. If they were to do something like that, who's the odd man out? So you'd have Higgins, you'd have the draft pick, you'd have Booty still being a part of it. Douglas is still going to be a part of it. I would keep Kendrick Bourne and Jalen Polk. The odd man out's probably Javon Baker, unless they keep 7 again. But if they make their premium veteran offseason addition a receiver, which I'm on the record saying they should do, no, I don't think a first-round receiver is worth it. I don't think a first-round receiver is a smart pick. At that
I don't even
point,
think it's necessary. Like
it's not necessary. No, they have depth. At that point, if you don't want to take a tackle, if you're worried about the tackles, now we start talking about, I don't think they're going to be the first overall pick. So Travis Hunter's probably off the table. He's going to be a Jaguar. I think now you're talking about Will Johnson. Now you're talking about Michael Williams. Now you're talking about James Pierce, Abdul Carter, who we got asked about earlier. If it's not a tackle, honestly, I'm at the point where you're probably looking at a defensive player.
Yeah. So this is a question from David in Madrid, who emails into the show all the time. And this is something along those same lines that you were just talking about that I've been thinking about quite a bit. And that is, at the top of the draft this year, are we trending towards this just being a best player available draft for the Patriots? And I'm not saying that I drafted safety, like he mentioned Malachi Starks.
Well, look, sorry, continue.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not totally throwing out positional value when I say that. But if you told me that the best course of action was to take the best player available at a premium position, receiver, tackle, pass rusher, cornerback, right? They already have the quarterback, so they don't need to do that. If it's on the defensive side of the ball, then I'm game. Like, just give me the best player at that point.
I think best player available is a myth. I think the concept of drafting the best player available is a myth because, Evan, Travis Hunter goes first overall. Who's the best player left on the board? Who is the best football player at their position on the board? Please give me the correct answer. I know you don't want to say it, but give me the correct answer.
Wait, so if Travis Hunter is off the board.
Yes. Who is the most talented football player at his position left?
Probably that Michigan tackle.
It's Ashton Genty.
No,
it's
not.
Ashton Genty. It's Ashton Genty.
Oh, God.
But the point being.
No, it's not.
So, and I don't think they should take Ashton Genty. I don't. He's going to be a Cowboy one way or the other. But.
Okay.
He's going to be, come on.
What? No, I don't think it's him.
I think it's him. To your point about the Michigan defensive tackle, Mason Graham.
Yeah.
I'm almost with you. I wouldn't take a defensive tackle that high. That's the one position. If you want to sell me.
So you wouldn't take, I know this is unfair, but you wouldn't take Chris Jones that high?
No, I'm talking specifically in this class for this team.
Okay.
So if you want to sell me on Will Johnson, if you don't believe in one of the tackles, you want to, and they add a veteran receiver, right? You want to sell me on Will Johnson, I can be sold on Will Johnson. You want to sell me on Michael Williams, you want to sell me, I'm still not sure on James Pierce, but we'll get there, Abdul Carter. I just look at defensive tackle, and I think Mason Graham's a good player. I think Deion Walker is already being slept on. Yeah. And I think he's going to be as good. For one thing, they have Barmore. I would say defensive tackle is the one position where...
Yeah, they have Barmore, and I would say that, Keon is really, a flex. Right. He's more of a hand-in-the-dirt guy on passing downs, too.
Between that and looking at the rest of the class, if you're going to take Mason Graham, at least trade down and take Deion Walker.
Yeah.
That's the one... And I reserve the right to change my mind. We're a long way out. But looking at it right now, That's the one position where I'd be I think is Mason Graham the best player available? Maybe. But when you get into the value of it, what are you really adding? I think a guy like James Pierce, if he is the pass rusher we think he is, a guy like Michael Williams probably gives you more pound for pound. And if it's no, we want a defensive tackle, we want a two-headed monster in the middle, trade down, take Deion Walker, I think you end up better for it.
Yeah, I'm really coming around on defense. I mean, look, we went on this whole thing about the coaching and on the defense.
Well, this is all predicated on them adding T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, whoever that kind of receiver.
Yeah, sure. But
if they don't, they need to take 10.
But even still, I mean, even still, it is obviously everything is about attacking it correctly in the veteran market too, right? But I just look at it and I just think that there's a lot of really good defensive talent in this draft. I think Will Johnson, even though he's had a little bit of a down year, you tell me, I think he's a hell of a football player still.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good defensive talent. I still feel like Travis Hunter is a better corner. I know
I'm with you on that.
I know he's probably going to play receiver in the league. But the point I'm getting at is that they need talent on both sides of the ball. And I understand we all want to give Drake Maye his toys and we all want to set Drake Maye up for success. We absolutely do. But you can do that in different avenues. And I look at the defensive side and really when you think about it, 2 out of the last 3 drafts have been offensive drafts for the Patriots. Yeah. 23 was a defensive draft. Bill picked 3 guys on the top of the draft, all defense, Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, Marte Mapu. But in 2022, it was Cole Strange, Tyquan Thornton, Pierre Strong. They mixed in Marcus Jones in there. And then obviously last year, they picked 1 defensive player in the 6th round in Marcellus Dial. That's a big reason why the depth on the defensive side of the football is where it is. You haven't really been drafting a ton on that side of the football. So we're at the point now where another pass rusher is necessary. Your pass rush right now is, I think they're 30th or 31st in the league in pressure rate on defense. Yeah. They don't get pressure on the quarterback anymore. Their second cornerback spot opposite of Christian Gonzalez is a problem. Marcus Jones is a slot. Like, he's just undersized to play
Right.
on the outside.
He's a good slot corner, but he's a slot corner.
Jonathan Jones is really I think, going to transition to free safety here soon and start to play more at safety. So you really need another guy on the outside opposite of Gonzalez. You're getting to the point where all these things are starting to creep up. Inside linebacker depth. You know, like you lose Bentley and that whole group kind of goes to shambles.
And this, how many years have we done that it's been a bad linebacker draft?
Yeah.
Right? Good linebacker draft this year. Harold Perkin, Danny Stutzman, Jihad Campbell, assuming he comes out. The one thing I'll say to the point you just gave is when you, because you're just kind of going off of who you've heard of as the top 30 guys.
Yeah.
Right? The talent, we've become so accustomed to there being just this tremendous depth on the offensive side of the ball these last few drafts. Outside of the running back position and maybe tight end, which are two positions Patriots could maybe address, but later on, like, you don't have that depth at wide receiver. You don't have that depth at tackle. This edge class, loaded.
Yeah.
Loaded.
Yeah.
The linebacker class, very good.
Yeah.
The cornerback class, there's a lot of underclassmen, so I'm hesitant to say it's going to be deep yet, but, like, it could be. It very well could be. And I think some of these guys are going to come out because they're going to see that opportunity. If they add the veteran receiver, I'm with you. But, like, if not, you're going to be able to get quality defensive players later than you're going to be able to get quality offensive players in this draft, it looks like.
Fair enough.
So they need, volume-wise, they need to address defense in this draft, 100%. When we're talking about the top, if they don't add a veteran receiver, it has to be Ted McMillan. You talked earlier.
So not to cut you off, but just, I think this is related.
Or a tackle, sorry, Ted McMillan or a tackle.
Yeah, so the other thing that we talked about the other day on PU, which I think is a possibility, a lot of the time when you look at the league, free agency, defensive guys do hit free agency quite frequently.
Sure.
So there are some corners, especially, DJ Reed, Javarius Ward, guys that Carlton Davis is going to be a free agent, guys that are good corners in the league that are going to be coming up on the market. If they're going to if you really think wide receiver is, they need to hit that, and they need to hit tackle 1 and 2 in the draft and have another top heavy, at least, offensive draft, well, then you have to fill it in another way,
Sure.
right? So then it becomes free agency becomes when you add defense, right? But one of these way, whichever, and we're going to have a conversation at some point, probably soon, and go down this rabbit hole of which path is better, but it's either you got to put all your resources into the offense in free agency and all of them into defense in the draft, or vice versa.
I don't think that's true. I think you can mix and match it. You could sign or trade for a receiver, draft a tackle at the top of the draft, sign one of those corners, draft, again, it's really good edge draft. I can't stress that enough. Sign a pass, sign a corner, draft a pass rusher in the second round.
On day 2 of the draft, though, realistically, just based off of just trends, like you might get like a Joshua Uche type who's like a really good pass rusher on third down. But in my feeling is that they on defense they might need a 3-down player.
There
are
some for this draft specifically. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
For this draft specifically, I think there are some potential primary pass rushers that you're going to think about where they're going to be picking on day 2.
Yeah.
We're not talking about picking the 40s, right? And the board will change, but the Ohio State guys, Jack Sawyer, 3-down player out of Ohio State,
he's
currently
a good player.
projected like a top 40 kind of player. There's a little bit higher. He's probably going to be a first-round pick, but like Nick Scorton, 3-down player. Tio Maluau, I think it is, from the other Ohio State guy, 3-down play. There you can get that 3-down. I don't know that you're going to get Myles Garrett, but can you get a guy who can be your primary pass rusher and be a 3-down player at that stage in the draft? I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. Cornerback, same way. Again, we'll see how many of these younger guys come out. It's a younger group, but if more guys go to the draft, I'm really interested to see what the book ends up being on the Ohio State guys. So Denzel Burke was a projected top 10 pick for a long time. He has had a rough season. David Igbinoza in the other corner, kind of same thing. Fringy first-round guy. Now people are saying more that 50 to 75 range. It's going to be. There's always these guys, right, where you look at the tape. I'm going to have to remind you. Watch Denzel Burke in 2022. Don't just watch Denzel Burke in 2023.
Yeah.
And where does that come down? If they see him in 22 and they say he had a down year last year for whatever reason, You get a potential, he certainly has the ceiling to be a guy that can be legitimate option opposite Christian Gonzalez. It's just, where do you think he's at from last year to this year?
Fair enough. I just look at it and, the more that I watch this team unfold this season, and I think a lot of this, and I'm not trying to make it harder on him than it already is, I'm really not, but a lot of this just stems from the fact that I think Drake Maye is just awesome and is going to make a lot of the offense go.
Okay,
but no, let me finish.
Yeah.
The more I watch the team, though, the more I look at the defense being the bigger problem right now than the offense, right? Like, it's very clear to me that the defense is the unit that's going backwards. The offense is at least on this steady climb up, and a lot of that is probably 90% of that is Drake. But at least we see some light at the end of the tunnel for the offense, where if you go out and you add a big time playmaker in free agency, you might be done on offense.
I still think you need a tackle.
You probably still need a tackle, but I don't think that tackle needs to be, Trent Williams, right? I think that if you go out and you get a serviceable NFL left tackle, then you'll be fine as an offense. I really believe that. If you still got to go out and get the guy, right? I'm not saying that, but defensively, I think that they have sort of had needs everywhere on defense all of a sudden. Offensively, I think they need a tackle help, and I think they need a number one receiver. I think they have a decent 2 through 5 in the receiver room.
I'm with you. If they add the left tackle, we're talking about just this year. They need a project tight end. They need a developmental center. But if you add the tackle, if you add the receiver, you're kind of banking on Caden Wallace showing up. We haven't gotten to see much of him this year, but that's group. I just wouldn't. I worry that they're going to look at it and say, Drake Maye's good. We're done. Let's work on the defense.
No.
You can't do that. We're learning lessons from the Mac Jones era, right?
Yeah.
Go get the kid the receiver. That has to happen, and you have to make sure his blind side's protected. It's a volume thing on defense. It's a quality thing on offense. It's a quantity thing on defense.
So my last thing on this, and then we got to wrap.
Yeah.
I feel like we always get caught, and I'm not saying you. I'm just saying this is a general. I feel like we always get caught in thinking the way to support the quarterback is to get him receivers, get him offensive line, build up the offense. It also doesn't hurt to make sure that the defense isn't giving up 30 a game.
It doesn't hurt.
Right? If he has to go out there and he has to score 24 a game to win 10 games, then that also helps a lot. You look at what Kansas City's doing, right? They're 9-1 because Patrick Mahomes has to make 2 plays at the end of the game to win them half of these games. That's how they've gotten here. So it doesn't hurt to have a good defense too. That helps a young quarterback as well when he doesn't have to go out there and score 35 to win the football game.
It does. And look, you know me, I'm the defense guy. I'm 100% with you on that. But
normally I'm the offensive guy on this show.
We've kind of flipped here.
We have.
I would just say
because the defense just doesn't stop anybody.
Younger quarterback, you want to give him the pieces to elevate and
absolutely. I just think that they're a couple pieces away on offense. I think defensively it's starting to get a little bit tenuous. That's all. Really quickly, and then we really do have to wrap. We talked a little Dolphins. I don't love this matchup on paper for the Patriots this week. Not only is Miami just not a great place for them normally, but I just don't really see a path for them to A, stop the Dolphins offense consistently, and then B, outscore the Dolphins offense the other side of the football. I'm trying to find a path for victory in this game. I do it every week. Even if they're 3-8, right? I'm going to try to talk myself into this is how they can win this game. The only way that I see that they can win this game is they have to play one of those clean time of possession type of games. It's going to have to be.
Well, he did that last week.
It's going to happen. I know. It's going to have to be boring, right? It's going to have to be 20-17 or 17-14 or something along those lines. And that's not the 35-30 shootout that we all would kind of like to see, I would assume, with Drake Maye. But that's where I'm sort of at with this game.
What's your statement on Jersey Mike's?
So this is my statement on Jersey Mike's. My fear with the great Jersey Mike's is that you're no longer going to be a sub above. You're going to just be like every other sub. You are just going to be a sub. The reason why I love Jersey Mike's is because Jersey Mike's has a sub above the rest. Okay. This is going to be corporate America.
A wrestling promo for them?
Corporate America, here we come. right? Here comes the hedge fund. Here comes the freaking capitalism people to ruin my sandwich chain, and I'm very upset
Why don't
about
you
it.
pull a Kramer and buy yourself a meat slicer, a deli slicer, and make your
Because
own
then I'm going to
sandwiches?
slice my arm off, Alex. That's really
Those
really
things aren't
smart.
as hard to use. They're not easy. They're not as hard to use as
All
maybe
I'm
you think.
saying to you, to whoever bought Jersey Mike's, do not ruin the product. That's what corporate America does. You come in, you ruin the product.
Equity firm Blackstone.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Okay, but wait, are they the ones behind Blackstone Grills? Because if they are, they know food. Because those
I am very upset.
is it
by
called
this.
Blackstone? What's that grill called? You know what I'm talking about?
So the
flat top. Those things are awesome.
The other thing about Jersey Mike's that I
yeah,
think
Blackstone grill. Those things rule.
okay. The other thing about Jersey Mike's is that I didn't expect
you to do that whole philosophical thing. I thought you were just going to do this part.
this is a first world problem. I fully admit, but I travel a lot for work, right? So I'm in different cities. I'm popping around a lot during football season. And I can always count on whether I'm here, whether I'm in Miami, whether I'm in Chicago, whether I'm in Arizona, whether I'm in Buffalo, wherever I am in the country, I can get a Jersey Mike's number 7 and know what I'm getting myself into, right? And that is very key for me. I'm a person, I'm a creature of habit. And the fact that I might have to now figure out a different sub place to get my sandwich from for game day, that really has me stressed out, Alex. I'm not going to lie. It's stressing me out.
I'm sure you'll find another sandwich place.
I don't know if I'm going to.
I think
I'm not going to.
So you're just going to not eat on game day?
I didn't say that. I just said that now I'm going to have to go local, and then I'm going to have to
All right,
Google it. and I'm gonna
Local
have to ask
sandwich
people.
places are always I love a good local sandwich place.
There's one
local sandwich place, local sub pizza place, usually
So
really good.
I agree. Like, we're big good food store people.
Yeah.
We're probably going to go tomorrow. But like, I know about good food store because I live here, right? Like, how am I going to find the local sub establishment in Buffalo, New York? Like, maybe my friends in Buffalo can help me out with
Maybe
that.
this becomes a thing. Maybe on social media each week you're on the road. Like, where should I get my sandwich
Yeah, because this is going to be brutal because they're going to ruin Jersey Mike's.
from? So tough.
I hate it. I hate corporate America sometimes. Speaking of America, Massachusetts is made for everyone. For leaf peepers, corn maze strollers. Stop it.
That's just such an amazing transition. I'm sorry.
I have to do the read.
Do the read.
Massachusetts is made for everyone. For leaf peepers, corn maze strollers, regatta lovers, pumpkin pickers, and anyone else you can think of. Come to where there's something for everyone.
I just didn't think you were going to get that macro with it. Like, I just thought you were going to do the thing
For
about, I'm on the
everyone
road,
this
I can't
fall,
find a sandwich.
Massachusetts, where everything is made possible. Plan your trip to visitma.com. I always think it's org, but it's .com. It's visitma.com. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. We will talk to you next week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Here for Catch-22, and we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.